the May 2026 DRC meeting. The DRC is a subcommittee of the Historic Zoning Commission. The meeting is informal and designed to guide applicants through the process of obtaining a certificate of appropriateness or a COA for projects within the city's historic districts in light of the Historic District Design Guidelines. Applicant participation in DRCs are voluntary but highly recommended, and any changes made or suggestions taken by the applicant based on the discussions with this committee are the applicant's choice, but the DRC makes no representation as whether any changes or suggestions made during the meeting will be approved by the voting body, the Historic Zoning Commission. That's our legal disclaimers for the evening. All right, there's 11 items on this afternoon's agenda. When the item is called, please introduce yourself and generally describe your item in 2 to 3 minutes. I believe we have 12 items? 11? 11, okay. 11 items. So item number 1 is discussion of building alterations, skylight installation at 217 Fifth Avenue South. You're not Jenna.
I'm not Jenna. I gotta change that, I guess. Good afternoon. I'm David Grothhamel. I'm with Lee Restoration.
Okay. Give us an overview of
Yes.
what you're hoping to do here.
So Mr. Briggs would like to add a skylight to his property at 217 Fifth Avenue South on the south side of the building, second floor. It's very, very low light in the second floor. And we're here to get some feedback from you guys on, the direction we need to take.
Okay. Let's hear from staff, please. Elizabeth.
Thank you. The proposed location is located on the right elevation on the building on a hipped pyramidal roof and will be highly visible from public view and street view. The location does not align with the guidelines as they should be positioned so they are not visible from the street. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right. Anybody have any thoughts, comments on this one? Holly?
Yeah, I don't think you can see it from the street. I know, do you?
No, it is not visible from the street. The only place that you'd really be able to see it is from the next door neighbor's backyard. It will be kind of, like right there, I guess, is the best location. You would be able to see it, just a hair of it from that angle right there, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Correct.
Anybody else?
When I was looking at this photo, I was thinking it was on the back of the house. So I was thinking, and driving around there, it was very inconspicuous if it was put in the back, but it changes everything with it being on the side.
Inside. Yeah. I think we've seen some proposals in recent memory, in the past year or so, of some skylights. We've even looked at some different styles, and I don't think any of them were received favorably in these locations. Did you have something you wanted to add?
Could you go back to the overview picture? Because it's almost like there's another section of roof that you can't see technically from the side. So at the top it comes up, and then there's 2 dormers that come out off the side, and the back dormer is where we are actually going to be locating it, not on the front section. So it's almost kind of like a pyramid at the top. Mm-hmm. And then a dormer comes off the back, and that's where the back side of the skylight would be on.
So is the red dot here is actually going to be on the dormer?
Correct.
Or is it
It's on the dormer side of it. Like I said, it's kind of weird because it is on the dormer section of it, but it's kind of tied into the roof line that comes kind of like this.
So it's in the valley?
Yeah, it's up from the valley. It's not going to be interfering with the valley, but it is on the other side of the main peak of the roof system.
Who submitted this?
We did,
Oh,
the
okay.
client and I.
Okay. Well, I mean, being very clear on where you're planning on putting it's important, but it's like, structurally speaking, I don't know
Yeah.
how you poke a hole.
Yeah,
the
it's
valley.
just off the fireplace. If you see that fireplace that's shaded by that that tree right there on the left side, it's just to the east side.
To the rear?
Excuse me. Yeah, the east side is where it would be closer to. It's facing south, but it's going to be on the eastern side of that
Chimney.
that chimney stack.
Okay.
So it'd be behind that chimney. is where we're referencing placing it. So the chimney sits like this, the front of the house is over here, and we're on this side of the chimney.
Okay. Thoughts?
David, I think one of your photos it's not in the right spot on the photo, because I think that one is more accurate, but that other one, I think it showed from the front, and I think where you're talking about in this bathroom isn't.
Okay, yeah, I'll cross-reference that. Thank you.
Anything else, anybody? Yeah, this,
Well,
Mary, go ahead.
I don't think this is going to work for showing the project. So if it does look to me like it may be hidden, but I think something that just shows it clear and the style of the skylight.
Yes,
And the exact size
correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
of it and
We're-
placement.
We're narrowing in on the size. It's a very small portion of the roof that we're able to actually grasp
Yeah.
in that little bathroom area. So we just narrowed in on that. But maybe I'll go on the roof because it is walkable and put a location on there so we can see it clearer.
Yes, ma'am, Kathy.
Sorry I was late, but we have looked at this proposed on another applicant's project, and the profile of I think it's a sonotube. It's a real low profile, so the size.
Yeah.
And also the height, the profile of it, so as low as you can get it to the roof line, and
Okay.
make it hide.
Yeah.
And then also too, the type of lens on it, because it's fine in daytime, but at nighttime, it's a white blue. Some of them can be tinted or masked with a screen so that you don't see a white blob in your roof at night.
At night. Got
They
it.
make them fancy.
They do, yes. There's a lot to choose from.
Yeah, I think what I remember about the guidelines is it's pretty specific about being, so if this is a pyramid-shaped roof, that it would be on that rear facet, not any of the other three sides. And so in describing it still being on one of the sides, forward or back of a chimney, regardless, you'd still be able to see it from the front. That's the intent of the guideline. So
Yeah.
just be real clear if you're going to bring it back, exactly where it's going to go, the size, all the details, and we'll look at it. So,
Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. All right, let's go to item number 2, discussion of roofing materials on a principal structure at 235 3rd Avenue South. Allie Freeman. Hello. Good afternoon.
This is my roofer, Sean.
Good. What's your last name, Sean?
Greeley, Grealey. And that is a 3-stone.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead and go green for us. Go ahead and let us know what you're hoping to do here on your house.
Yeah, so initial proposal, when we met with these ladies over here, was reviewing the Brava synthetic slate roofing material for a full roof replacement on the main structure of this home. The goal is to restore a historical look of the house while also providing a really durable roof that's going to provide excellent longevity. For reference, the Brava synthetic slate looks exactly like real slate without all of the extra reinforcement of the home and the additional costs that real slate incurs. It's still a premium roofing product that will last 50-plus years on a property, and is certainly, functionally much better than regular asphalt shingles, which is why it is appealing to many homeowners. It was in conversation. It seems that the historical design guidelines do have verbiage that makes it seem like the same material as is pre-existing on the house is meant to be used. That's at least what we discussed at our first meeting, which is why there's also a second option presented here for an asphalt material that does provide an imitation slate aesthetic. There are, I believe, other homes and buildings within the historic Franklin area that do have these types of shingles already installed that are made of asphalt, just like the shingles that are pre-existing on Ms. Freeman's home are. So those are kind of the goals here, is to be able to provide a roofing material that will provide much better protection, much better durability and longevity, and a beautiful aesthetic while still staying within the historic guidelines here.
Okay. And Ms. Freeman, what's your, there's got to be one you want more than the other.
Well, I'm factoring in the cost as well.
Sure.
So I'm not committed to the slate product. Did I not present the visual of the Grand Manor?
I think you did. We've got it in here in our,
Yes.
we've got
So what you
cut
have
sheets
there-
for both.
Just for clarity, you have, what we're discussing are products from the company CertainTeed. It's a very popular, very well-known roofing company or manufacturer. They have multiple imitation slate shingles. Ms. Freeman submitted the Highland Slate, which is a very similar aesthetic to another one that she's considering called the Grand Manor shingle. Those are the two asphalt products that she's actively considering to move forward with, assuming that the synthetic slate may or may not be an option. The synthetic slate is being proposed here because she isn't committed to the cost factors and other various factors that may go into one product versus another. And really the goal is just to see what may or may not even be approved by all. So.
Okay, understood. All right, let's hear from staff, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The property that is located at 235 3rd Avenue South is located in the downtown Franklin Historic District and is considered a contributing circa 1930 colonial revival building. The proposal includes the removal of the existing architectural shingle roof with either a synthetic slate or a designer asphalt shingle roof to emulate the appearance of slate. The guidelines recommend preserving historic roof forms and materials. If localized damage occurs, it is recommended to replace the damaged materials only. If partial or wholesale replacement is needed, use materials whose composition and appearance match the historic materials. The use of a synthetic slate roof or designer asphalt shingle roof does not align with the guidelines. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. All right, anybody want to kick us off with some thoughts here? Holly?
Some thoughts.
Okay.
Yeah, so I have seen the asphalt imitation slate several places downtown. I think even the Historic Presbyterian Church has it on there. My opinion is that the other imitation slate obviously looks more like actual slate. I think it looks more historic to me than the asphalt version. Typically, if it already had an asphalt roof, the thinking is to replace it with that, but I don't see why there would be a good historic reason to do that when the other one is a lot more authentic looking of the material. So I'd be for the more authentic imitation slate rather than the asphalt imitation slate. But they both look really nice, so if cost was a factor, I think the less expensive one would be okay.
Okay.
If I may, am I allowed
Yeah,
to
go
make
ahead.
a comment?
Yeah, go ahead.
One note is that the current asphalt architectural shingles on the home were not invented before the late 1960s, early 1970s, and they didn't go into mainstream use until thereafter. With the home being built in the 1930s, almost definitely it would have, at the bare minimum, had a different asphalt product on it, a 3-tab shingle, which in its essence is an imitation slate material anyway. Or other popular products for roofing would have been slate or cedar shake or something along those lines.
Sure.
I haven't seen a photo of it upon original construction, so I can't, confidently tell you what was on it. But certainly just from a historical perspective, the current roofing product on it would have never been on it upon initial construction anyway.
Sure. Well, and you kind of made my point for me, which is if you have to use an imitation product because the real one is too heavy, then obviously it wasn't slate ever. And I don't think anybody would argue that it was ever slate based on the structure, but yeah, it was probably a 3-tab shingle. Could have been shake. And that's kind of where on this particular house, it's not what we would consider like one of the high style houses that's, a giant Italianate like the Abbey Lee Mansion or something, which just is a different thing. So the asphalt shingles, this is what it's always had, some version of that. And they're all made to mimic something thicker. It's all about shadow line and all that, whether it's slate or cedar shake. They're mimicking one of those with every asphalt product ever made. So anyways, did you have something, Mary? Looked like you had.
I do not think it ever had slate. So I would have a preference for doing what was traditionally there, which if you have evidence of something besides asphalt, but an asphalt that imitates the slate a little bit is fine with me, for our guidelines, in my opinion.
So you see these kind of Manor and Highland series as acceptable? They're a nicer version of a, okay. Anybody
I
else?
would agree with that.
Okay, Angela? Bob, anything?
Same here.
Same, yeah. I tend to concur that, I think those are just a little nicer shingle. They have a little better shadow line, and it's an upgrade, which is good. And not that there's anything wrong with the synthetic slate. It just, for the style of your house and the age of it, might seem disingenuous on that particular house because it just probably wouldn't have been seen on it ever. Okay. Any other specific questions you have?
So it looks like I submitted the Highland slate, but is that similar enough to the Grand Manor?
I think we've seen Grand Manor on several projects we have
Grand
approved
Manor is on
before.
several properties in downtown
Yeah,
Franklin.
yeah, I know we've
'Cause I think I
seen
like
it.
better.
Yeah.
The Grand Manor better.
Okay. Thank you all. If you have any other
Okay.
questions, you good?
So one last question.
Yes.
So I'll go with this probably, the asphalt shingle. Do I have to go before?
Yes, you'll send an official application in for a COA. Staff will follow up with you after this
Okay.
with a little email on kind of what next steps are and some of the feedback.
Okay.
And then they'll give you good guidance on how to proceed.
Okay.
And
Okay.
Mr. Chair, and
Yes,
bring
ma'am.
a sample would be
Yeah.
good of the color.
This is the
product.
sample man.
That's
Yes.
right. I'll have it.
So the
Thank you.
color will be important
Yeah.
to see, yeah.
I'll probably stick with the same charcoal that's up there. Just 'cause-
Goes with the
Yeah,
stone.
bring it. We love to see it.
Yeah.
Rarely people bring actual real samples, and we do like that.
Yeah.
So,
Great.
Okay.
perfect.
Sounds good.
Thank you so
y'all.
much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 3, discussion of alterations, walkway, driveway, lighting, and fencing at 424 South Margin Street. Hudson Walker applicant.
That would be me.
That would be you,
Before
Mr.
Hudson
Walker?
goes, I just wanted to introduce myself. I'm Paul Holzen. I'm the city engineer. I did want to point out the driveway had been removed, and so the walkway. Ms. Sandra Morris had contacted me early on about what it took, and I said, well, you're just replacing it, go ahead and do it. And so she did that with my approval. What I failed to do was check with Emily and Elizabeth. So I wanted you to know that that was approved, shouldn't have been approved. I did, and now Mr. Hudson is stepping up to try to correct all that. So
Okay,
just wanted
understood.
to point that out.
Thank you for that. Thank you. All right, if you want to give us a quick overview of what you've got going on here, and then we'll give you some feedback.
Sure, I'll be glad to. We're going to replace the driveway with top cast concrete in the location that it was previously, and line it with cobblestones down each edge. We contacted Paul because we wanted to be clear about what to do with the sidewalk, and he instructed us not to change the sidewalk since it's already in place, so we're only going to do that up to the existing sidewalk. And we would put the existing front walk to the front door back in its same location, but we'd like to pave it with stone pavers, similar to Crab Orchard stone and a ashlar pattern. And we have a patio in the back near the rear door. That we'd also like to be an ashlar pattern of stone. And then we'd separate the parking area from the patio with a 3 to 3.5 foot picket fence, which I think I have. There's the pattern of the stone we'd use for the front walkway and driveway with cobblestone edging. It's not a bright white concrete. It's similar to being sandblasted, but you don't have the mess of sandblasting with sand particles going everywhere. And
Okay.
there's a picture of the proposed fence. And We exchanged a light fixture on the front of the house to a gas light fixture. And then we were forced by electrical codes to put an electric light fixture by the side door on the front of the house, right there. And those are copper fixtures made by Bevel, reputable company out of New Orleans. And that's what we would like to do.
Okay. Let's hear from staff on their feedback.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Property located at 424 South Margin Street is located in the downtown Franklin Historic District and is considered a contributing circa 1930 Tudor Revival building. The proposal includes the replacement of the existing asphalt driveway with concrete, replacement of the walkway with a stone in an ashlar pattern, installing a rear patio in the same material as the walkway in an ashlar pattern, installing a rear fence with a picket design, and installing new lighting on the front and rear of the building. The guidelines support the change in the driveway material, utilization of a stone as a walkway material, installation of a rear stone patio, and rear yard fencing. The following recommendations are for the proposed lighting. Preserve and maintain original light fixtures on pre-1960 buildings. If new lights are needed, use simple fixtures that are appropriate to the scale and period of the house and constructed of historically prevalent materials. New fixtures should be placed in traditional locations. Use lighting sources and illumination levels that enhance the character of the historic building and the historic district. A light fixture on the front of the building has been in the same location since the early 2000s based on Google Street View imagery. Whether or not the fixture was powered by gas or electricity is unknown. We would like feedback from the DRC on the use of gas or electric power for the proposed fixtures and the use of cobblestone on the sides of the driveway. Thank you.
Thank you. Jared, did you come up to add something?
From the code's perspective, there is an NOV on the site. I was notified before this meeting about work without permits, and that does apply to the gas lantern, and a gas permit, gas inspections were not done at this time. I just wanted to, we can walk through that process after, with the codes department with BNS. We can talk about that after this process. I just kind of wanted to notify him about that.
Okay, perfect.
We got the stop work order before we had called in for our final inspections.
Understood. Okay. Thank you very much. All right. There's a few items on here. Let's, it sounds like staff viewed all of them as favorable, just kind of had a question on light fixtures. Is that what I heard?
On the light fixtures and the use of cobblestones
On the edging.
for the
Okay.
edging of the driveway.
Okay. All right. Anyone have any comments here on this one? Mary?
Mr. Chair, we have approved cobblestone on the edges before, and I think that's appropriate
Okay.
per the guidelines.
Holly, do you have something?
Yeah, so I think I mean, I agree with the staff's approval of these things. My only question was about the stone for the walkway. It looks in the picture like it's slate maybe, and it looks like the stone on your house is limestone. I was just wondering about that, like if it's going to be a different color than the stone on the house, or if you could get a similar stone, maybe the ashlar pattern in a different color or something, so it wasn't like adding another color of stone.
I'll have to look into that. That stone was chosen from J&R Stone on Hillsborough Road, and the designer felt like it went with the house. I'm not sure what's going over the front door. It might be limestone, it could be Tennessee fieldstone that's been hewn. But we can certainly look into that.
Yeah, I think otherwise, I think maybe just making sure the color works with what's actually on the house. But other than that, I think the cobblestone on the side of the driveway and the walkway as well.
So what would I do there? Bring a photograph holding up a sample of the stone
Yeah.
next to the ones over
I
the
think so.
front door?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think so.
if you could
Is
do that, or if there are a couple options that, that you could take a picture of, or even just at the stone yard, even taking a picture of the options, and then just picking the one that looks the closest. That's what I would think would be the easiest.
Yeah, it could be like an Indiana limestone, but based on the pictures, it looks a little more like a Harpeth Valley gray, like limestone. And it's funny because all these flat work things, there's like bluestone, and then there's like Canadian glacier stone, and they're all just very subtle. And then even within the Tennessee limestones, there's like a gray glass, almost that black color. There's Harpeth Valley gray, Bedface gray, which is kind of orangey, that crab orchardy. So there's a lot of variation in Tennessee. We're lucky to have so many kind of colors available right here. But
And
yeah.
Mr. Chair, there's a lot of them that change color once you put them down.
Mhm.
And a lot
Yeah.
of rusty colors come up through them.
Okay, any other
Personal
feedback?
experience.
Kathy?
Yeah, you mentioned a pattern. Ashlar, is that the pattern that you want to go with?
That's preferred by the designer and the homeowner, yes.
Bring us a sample of how that pattern lays out, because size of stone sometimes can get busy and compete with the simplicity of this Tudoresque home. So
Okay.
I'd like to see how that pattern would lay out. Your walkway is about how wide?
It's about 3 to 3.5 feet wide.
Yeah. It would be interesting to see how they would lay out that pattern in your
Okay.
walkway. So maybe show us what your pattern choice looks like.
Okay.
It'll also help you pick which stones go in the pattern as well.
I
and
think
size.
primarily they would be larger stones on the sidewalk that narrow, rather than to have multiple, like 12 by 12s. So they would, it'd be 24 by 24, and then maybe 18 by 18. They would want to minimize the amount of joints.
Sure. Yeah, it can start to look a little more like tile if it gets too small, and then
That's
it
right.
doesn't feel right. Okay, good point, Kathy.
Just, is
Angela?
this a granite cobblestone on the driveway, edging the driveway?
Yes, ma'am.
So it looks like the color of that granite would go well with this color here. I think it looks good. I think it's suitable to the style of the house, the cottage style, and the lanterns look like appropriate scale and
Okay.
material.
Bob, anything extra
No, so
about this?
you're still figuring out if you can put gas? Is that what?
I think it's just an
You have the
inspection.
fixtures in, you just,
Oh, well, when we thought we had approval to redo the driveway, we had not called for our final inspections. But the house is finished. We were getting ready to call for the gas inspection, the plumbing, electrical final, and building final. But then we got a stop work order because we were confused about not getting permission from the historic zoning committee because we called Paul.
Sure. So you're caught in the middle here. Middle of the process, yeah. Understood. Yeah, so I guess when you come back for COA, it would include all of these things, including kind of retroactively approving light fixtures and things. And that would hopefully open up that stop work order, and you could get your inspections and be done. That's the goal, right?
Yes.
Okay. Any other feedback?
I do have
Kathy?
a comment about the gas lantern over the front door, front entry, and staff asked us to comment on it. To me, the scale seems a bit large, and I'm not sure if it appears like a carriageway type of style. Maybe it's just the scale of it. Is it a wall mount?
It's
wall
a
bracket?
bracket, it's a bracket mount, so it's
So
got
it
glass on
suspends.
4 sides.
It's like a gooseneck.
And a
Yeah.
gooseneck, and it's off the house, maybe 6 inches. And, the picture may not do it justice. You might have to drop by there and see what it looks like from the street, or I could get
It
another.
appears just, to me, a bit grander than for that style of home. And if it is more of a carriage style, usually those are done like through porticos and ceiling mounted type of applications. But it's a little large just to me.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
And just wanted to touch on if the use of gas is appropriate in this, as this is a 1930s construction building, and typically it's kind of on the edge. In the past, we have not recommended
Sure.
to use gas for this type of construction.
Yeah, I've always been of the opinion that the fixture itself probably makes more difference than the light source. I think for a house that, if you were doing a restoration for like the National Park Service or something, and it was a house that had gas and you put electric, all of a sudden it's just a very different output. But I've never gone by a house and saw gas and went, oh my goodness, can you believe the glare? But I have gone by and said, oh my gosh, look at that fixture. Why did they put that on that house? And it has nothing to do with the light source. It always has to do with the form and shape and the actual fixture itself. So I don't feel strongly about it. I know our guidelines try to point us towards, okay, what would have historically been there and appropriate. But even change over time, people have swapped things out even before they went in overlays. I mean, we have a mixture in town. There's a little bit of everything.
I know, looking also at this picture right here, it kind of tells the whole story. So the gas lantern is definitely just effect, and there's nothing grander than soft gas light. But over the front door, there's another light in there. You see a casting? I'm sure that's electric. So
Well,
you
the-
get something lit in there as well. To me, the biggest offense is having these decorative fixtures like the lantern and sourcing an electric source and sourcing the wrong lamp, the wrong light bulb, where it's this neon-looking creature. And it's just, that happens a lot in our neighborhood where they put the wrong light bulb in. So anyway, the warm light is beautiful, and it does tell the story, but I do love gas as well, but
Yeah.
anyway.
What I would say is
what it's worth.
when you come for a COA, Bevelo has a spec sheet. Bring the exact spec sheet, take better pictures of this close up, the sides, so that we just know exactly what it is. And the same's true with the back, which more information is good for us. So, anything else, anybody? Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank y'all.
Thank you. All right, item number 4 is my project, so I'm going to ask Mary if she'll drive the ship for a minute. Be nice to me. You want that?
So number 4 is discussion of principal building alterations, design alterations at 908 West Main Street. And the applicant, Tyler, are you going to be the applicant? Yes.
Myself and the owners here.
Tyler from Marinell is the applicant. So, do you want to explain the process?
I will. What a weird dynamic, huh?
Yeah.
All right. I have been working with Tim and Melissa here, the new owners at Maple Dean, which I think everyone knows the house probably, at 908 West Main. Couple exterior changes they wanted to go ahead and get started. We're working on some updates to the house, mostly interior stuff that you all will get to see later, some rear updates. But the main things were getting the envelope really tuned up in a way that we felt like was going to make sure the house lasted, because it's got some issues. One of the issues that you'll see in the very center there is the big square flat roof. That is rolled asphalt shingles, so big, like 4-foot wide sheets of asphalt, and there's no slope, so it's been leaking and has issues for however long before you all bought it, which is recent. So the hope there, I think the guy from Three Stones left. He's another guy from Three Stones. The idea is that they would go in and remove that and put tapered insulation. So it's a foam board that gives it enough slope that then they could put an EPDM roof, so a big rubber roofing membrane, to give that some proper slope. Nothing changes from the ground. It will have a little pitch, a 1/4 inch per foot. So I think I calculated it's like 2 inches taller, but you can't see it from the ground. You can't see the flat roof from the ground anyways. So it won't be visible at all. And then there's some more rolled roofing on the left side of the house there. There's an old wing addition on the very far left there that I'm showing in metal roofing there. And that we would like to swap out for standing seam. And that's the picture in the lower left-hand corner. It's just that big giant rolls of asphalt. And so swapping that out for metal, they tell us that they can do that even though it's a fairly low slope, that the metal should work there. And then there's more metal on the front roof now over the porch that's red. It has lots of issues. I wasn't even sure it was standing seam metal because it had so much like stuff. It's been band-aided and caulked and like some things done to it. So hoping to swap that out too. And it's red now. We're hoping for all the metal to go to a bronze color. I told you about the EPDM roof, which is black. You won't see it. And then replacing the shingle roof, which is well past due. And they too are considering one of those Grand Manor products. The house literally to the right of this one, 906, 904, 904, they have the Grand Manor Certainty shingle roof. So it's very similar. And for this style of house, kind of Italianate. I don't think it started as Italianate. I think it's been played with over the years. But so those are the roofing issues there. And then we also talked about gutters and downspouts. That picture you see right there, those are copper K-style gutters and copper rectangular downspouts. And when you get to other portions of the house, it's aluminum K-style gutters and downspouts. So the hope is to swap out all the aluminum for copper, so the whole house would be copper. And we've had debates on K-style or half round. I don't know what was originally on here. I just know that today there's some K-style copper. So we're hoping to swap those out. On the front elevation, there's quite a bit of white paint. I think it's on the yellower version of white paint. So I think we're hoping to paint it something less yellow, but still white. So touching up, and there's a lot of paint that just needs to be done. So I've kind of included in that letter all the things. Repainting the white trim. There's a missing column right behind that one that I think in the next sheet down, I actually have a picture of the house, or maybe it's the sheet above. Right there. Nope. Go back down to the bottom. Maybe I have a different note there. So if you look, I may have trimmed it off on accident. Anyways, there's one of these columns. I have a picture of it that I will provide. It's missing a square column, even though all the columns are round now. You can tell the column plinth is there, and the column was square, and it's a pilaster against the wall that the porch rack sits on. And I actually have a picture of the house with the square column. So we're hoping to put that back because it looks like the porch rack's just kind of floating. A new ceiling fan and a new light fixture. And light fixture is that sort of lantern there that you see on the right. It will not have a solid back on it. It will actually suspend from the ceiling. But that's the best picture that 14th Colony has of that particular style. And you see what's there today, this kind of hexagonal lantern. Did I catch everything? The fountain. The fountain doesn't work, nor does the pool hold water. So they're going to replace it with that fountain there, which is of similar scale and size to the one that's there. I think I've heard from many neighbors they're excited to get the fountain back in that view and just kind of the noise of it walking down Main. So those are the items we have for this trip.
Thank you. The property located at 908 West Main, locally known as Maple Dean, is located in the Hinchyville National Register Historic District and is considered a contributing 1881 building. The proposal includes alterations to the roof, repainting areas that are currently painted, reinstallation of a square pilaster to the front of the building, repairing and replacing deteriorated wood elements, replacement of a fountain, replacement of ceiling fans, K-style gutters, and a new light fixture on the front of the building. All of the proposed alterations appear to align with the guidelines. It is recommended to include photos and a description of the pilaster that is proposed to be recreated on the front elevation for the Historic Zoning Commission to review. Thank you.
So this pilaster, there's one on the other side that you would be going by?
No, there's not. We just have a picture of it. And it looks as though they've got some paint and caulk lines that are stuck to the brick. So we know the exact profile of the crown and everything that was on it. And then we have a picture of it looking kind of right at that corner.
Yeah.
And you can tell from the plinth, which is a limestone plinth, that it was a square column. We have the picture of it, and we'll be able to recreate the profile. I don't know that those, first of all, that this whole porch on the front is not original to the first version of this house. Yeah, there's the, you can see the brick pilaster, but there's actual column outline on that pilaster back there. It's kind of peculiar. I don't know when this porch was added, but they are quite the grand Corinthian columns on this Italianate house, and there's all this front work, even the sunrooms, the two-story sunrooms were added at some point. We know from the original kind of fire maps that there was just this single room deep, 2-room house with the foyer in the middle, and there was a big, big wood framed wing on the back. Supposedly that was moved to Fair Street at some point. We don't know which one it is or even if it still exists, but that came off in all these additions. There's a big addition on the back, another addition on the side, the porch and sunroom additions on the front. But I think it probably started as more of a federal style house.
Interesting.
Because there were no porches or anything.
Federal style.
It was like a federal style. I think pretty interesting. It's kind of I-shaped.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Well, I think everything that you've proposed is going to be an improvement to this building. I like the standing metal roof and the colors and great job.
I did want to ask, looking at your illustration, are you moving the fountain, or is it going to stay in the
same exact place. Yep. We don't want to move electrical or plumbing, which will probably have to be reworked anyways. But yeah, it's staying in the same place. And I think when Tim and Melissa went and looked at them, that was the closest thing to what was there. And I think I've looked at trying to get what's there repaired, but the pool is concrete, and it's in so many pieces that you just have to rebuild it anyways. So there was no trying to save that thing without just rebuilding it. So they are going to just rebuild it.
I think the scale of what you're showing looks great. Looks very good.
It's a big lot.
Yeah.
The lot's got some peculiarities with the drives really far to the left. There's 3 outbuildings, and so the fountain, even on this drawings, it looks kind of grand, but it's a really big lot. I think it sits nicely, and it's of a similar scale to what's there.
Yeah.
The folks that know it.
Looks good.
I was going to say, I'm positive that everything fits the guidelines because of his doing it.
Don't say that.
You'd be in trouble. I have a comment too. You mentioned about the copper roof. Is it a copper finish or is it?
No
actual
copper roof. No, we're going to do a bronze-colored pre-finished roof. Yeah, it's bright red now.
Copper's in the gutters.
Coppers on the gutters.
And the
My question
downspout.
was if it was this bronzish color, it's a finished sealed, it will not patina like the copper gutters?
Correct.
Okay, so
Yes.
it will,
And most of it you can't see because the front porch is,
tall.
I only think it's maybe a 112 slope, maybe 2. That's how much you see, and a lot of that is there's kind of coping over the edges. And then there's the low slope roof on the left side, which is a previous addition there. You can see the brick differences there. There's kind of the orangey brick. I don't know exactly when that was built. I haven't been able to figure it out. Do you guys, any idea? It's,
Well, it'll be
the
much-
problem is there hasn't been one like addition. It's been, I mean, it's 150 years old, so there's been a lot going
So
on.
not much of the roof will show, the
Yeah.
metal roof, and that's red now, so the new color will be less
It's a dark bronze.
noticeable as that.
That's right. It's a dark bronze.
Just didn't want it to clash with the copper, the
Yeah,
natural copper
yeah.
gutters.
Well, the copper will eventually
And they
get to
turn
the
patinaed, yeah.
that bronzy color. I think it'll be a little stark to start out because it's raw copper.
It'll show.
But you see that picture in the upper second from right there. They'll turn that bronze color eventually there. Then it'll all blend a little better. I think most people's dark bronze is an attempt at getting to those darker tones without the green in it. But yeah.
One other thing, in your front elevation, you've got the lantern over the front door rendered. You didn't render in the ceiling fan. Is it hidden up into the?
It is. It's not
depths?
deep enough to see. The porch rack is
And you're
almost 2 feet deep.
purposely making it more of a ceiling mountish?
Yeah.
Than a hanger?
I think that the idea was, one, to get the light fixture off of it, and two, they just want a fan that works. Yeah.
And the scale.
Yeah, the scale, that fan that's there is much more contemporary, and it's kind of tiny. So the Pros one's just a bigger fan too. It's just wider. It's a pretty generous
I like
porch.
that it's hidden up in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I said, the porch rack I think is 2 feet deep. It's a really, so I'm not even sure that lantern will hang that far down. You know, those things are yoke mounted and you can adjust it. So we'll have to figure out. I like to see some of that from outside, but there's definitely a proportion to it.
Well, I just think it's an exciting project to get all these repairs because this house is one of the stars
Yes.
in town. Thank
Yep.
you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Very exciting for West Main.
Thank you.
Yes.
Good to see you. Go back to my post. All right, I'm coming back. Thank you.
When I moved to town, it was an apartment.
Really?
What was that?
It spent part of its life as an apartment, built,
Oh,
divided up.
you can tell.
Apartments.
You can tell. It has 4 different floor changes in the second floor. All right, I have to have my cheat sheet back. Yeah, my pen. Thank you. All right. Thank y'all for being patient with me there. That was kind of weird. It's going to be even more weird when it's a voting meeting. All right. Item number 5, discussion of lighting, gutters, downspouts, and front yard fencing at 121 Miles Manor Court. The Cashes are here.
Hello, hello. We're back. This is number 16.
Do you get nervous when you come up here, Tyler?
Nah. This one's easy.
You did great.
It did do very well.
It's an exciting project.
Okay. Let's go, if y'all want to tell us what you're planning here.
Yeah, so a couple things. One, after our last DRC meeting, we're just trying to land this gas, electric conversation on the light fixtures at our home. After the last meeting, and I read through the transcript of the meeting, and I watched it back again, our kind of take of it was, hey, kind of similar to what I saw a little bit ago with the people on Margin Street. There's just a bit of a conversation. Then we got the report from staff that said, the commissioners noted that the use of gas would not be appropriate for the age of the building. So we're just a bit confused, and I don't want to come back to the HGC meeting for a vote and not have clarity on what we're submitting, if that makes sense. So we're just trying to get a degree of clarity on that. I know last time we discussed that natural gas was not in Franklin until the 1950s. But you can see I've got 17 houses right there that were all built prior to the 1950s. I'm pretty certain that all have gas lanterns today. And also gas has been around for hundreds of years. So anyone who had a match and a ladder could have had a fixture that they lit every night. I mean, it's very hard to know for sure if anyone would have not had gas lanterns. And it's a little confusing reading the guidelines. I dove back into it a good bit and went back into the Secretary of Interior standards on these kinds of things. It's the unseen utility source is really not discussed in these, as long as the fixture, the size, the placement are identical. The guidelines don't regulate the fuel source of the fixtures. And so getting that, no, hey, the gas would not be appropriate for the age of the building is just, again, a bit confusing for us as homeowners to know, how do we come back to the HCC and submit based on the different, what feels like a little bit inconsistent feedback. And so we do have this lantern on the front of the house that we're looking at. We'd love to do gas for that. And then, and we want to go small as possible. We're using all means possible to make sure it's the exact same size as the previous electric fixture that was up there. That was from a box store in 2006. We're just trying to replace it with, but the scale of it to me felt great. And so we'd love to replace it with a little bit nicer fixture that's the exact same size, same style. We would love gas because we love the warm light of gas and feel like, and similar to the house on Margin, just underneath the porch there's an electric light, which we'd love to keep electric. And it's a bit of a story to me to have those both. And then on the rear of the home, which is the addition part, in the COA from way back when, there were two lanterns there that look very much like these. We'd love for those to be gas as well. And so, yeah, just trying to get feedback so that we know exactly what to submit for the voting meeting.
Okay. So,
Oh, yeah, and then also, yeah.
gutters, downspouts, and fencing.
Correct. So the gutters and downspouts, kind of like we talked about last time, felt like everybody was, in favor of doing half-round gutters and round downspouts. Those are the original locations of gutters on the original part of the home and the downspouts. So we'd love to just put them exactly where they were before. I think before I hadn't realized, you'd think I'd know this after all this, but that we would need to show those exact locations. So I just wanted to go back and show all of those locations. So on the original home, everything is identical to what it was before we started the renovation. And on the addition part below, those are just where our architect and contractor have said we need gutters.
And are those aluminum or are they copper?
Copper.
Copper, okay. Okay, and then your fencing?
Fencing, we just wanted to show, we discussed last time, kind of where that would go. That's what, ideally, we would love to carry a fence further, but it's not in the budget, and so we're not even submitting for it. But currently, we'd love feedback on that location for the fencing. I believe, and we really kind of are open to styles of pickets. I don't know, I mean, Elizabeth and I talked, I'm not sure how specifically we need to get exactly, but that's a house on West Main that we love those pickets. And that's a style we would love to do, or something very similar to that. And again, obviously within the guidelines of the fence not being taller than 36 inches and all, we're well aware of that, so.
Okay. All right, let's hear from staff on these things.
Thank you. So we'll start with the gas lanterns. The proposed fixture appears appropriate. However, additional information about the total height and size of the fixture should be indicated. And staff would appreciate feedback about the use of gas versus electric on these fixtures. And the proposed fixture on the rear appears to be scaled appropriately with the indicated heights on the graph. The proposed gutter and downspout placement appears appropriate, and the use of half-round gutters and round downspouts is appropriate for the architectural style and age of the building as it is 1930s. And for the fencing, the proposed picket fencing appears to align with the guidelines for design and location for front yard fencing, and the design features varied heights for the pickets. So feedback on the proposed elements would be appreciated. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, any comments?
I do.
Okay, Holly?
I think the gas light fixture is plenty historic, and it's like we have just said for the last person, that it was more about the shape of the fixture and the scale than the actual source. So I'm fine with the gas. I think it looks beautiful, and this is just fine.
Agree.
I agree.
Angela?
I think the main thing, as we saw a few moments ago, is the size of the fixture.
Of course.
It's appropriate to scale.
Yeah, and to that point, I'd love to see, when you come for COA, have the actual size overlaid on the picture, just so we,
Great.
because if we don't have that, then we are taking people's word for, and it's not just your word or anybody's word, it's just, we're just going, well, they said it's close to what was there, but we don't even know what was there.
Totally.
You know, so it's like, if you show it, usually if there's an image, we go, yep, that looks good, or holy smokes, that's too big or too small.
I know
So-
2
so
or
just
3
some-
inches can change the scale dramatically.
Yeah, so just some illustration so that we go, we are voting on that.
Okay.
Because this, you get a chart, and even if you highlighted one, I can't read a tape measure. I'm joking. But it's the problem here too is it's like you need to see them together. The house, all the gables, all that stuff sets a proportion for the light. So when we see an illustration, we get it instead of us having to imagine it. So
Mr. Chair, and just a picture of what you're actually buying
Okay.
would be great.
yeah, Bevelo I'm sure has some images of
Yeah.
the millions of these they've made.
Does that style, I mean, I know you're seeing it in 2 dimensions, but does that style seem for you guys to align with what would be appropriate? They have another style that unfortunately, with Bevelo, the smallest size is an 18-inch, and I think that's going to be too big for our home.
Probably right.
So
Probably
the
right.
14 here, it was really, you kind of, if you go with Bevelo, and they're fantastic, that's really about the smallest option
Yeah.
available.
So the size, if you're asking us for a style and a size, once you have your size and your style, it could look very different. Like your size might dictate maybe picking a different style.
Sure.
So that proportion reads differently in a particular style, so you have to be careful with that. So
Yeah.
if you have a couple you like, bring them.
Am I correct for an HDC meeting that we need to say this is the only option?
Should, yeah.
Okay.
You should be picking what you want because we have to. It gets weird when we try and pass a motion or somebody
That's true.
puts up a motion and there's options. It's like, you tell us what you're proposing. We vote on that. And that's
Is
not
there-
always good.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go
No,
ahead.
you're good.
Is there any gray area? I mean, as a homeowner, if you made the mistake and didn't show the second option, then you wait, you lose a month.
Yeah.
Is there,
That's
Well,
that's
Mr.
true.
Chair, there can be conversation with staff,
Yeah.
and they are a resource to
That's
tell
right.
you what meets the guidelines.
Yeah, and that's what this is for too. So if
Sure.
you had those illustrations
Illustrations
today
tonight.
and went, well, this
Yeah.
one's bigger, but we like this one better. What do y'all think? We'd be able to tell you tonight, like, I think this is a
Okay.
better bet for you.
got it.
But I don't personally see anything wrong with this. It's a traditional fixture. See it a lot of places.
Okay.
So I don't see anything wrong with it. And then you've got the other one too. I think it's called the Williamsburg. It's rectangular, tall. Got this
And again, we kind of want to go small back there. I don't love huge.
exaggerated fixtures. Yeah. Well, I don't think any of these are inappropriate, in my opinion. I mean, and I think what came off the front to me is the most important. The back it's your back. But the front, if a lantern came off, and traditionally it probably had some type of carriage house lantern thing like you're showing. So it could have been square back then, but
I have pictures of it.
yeah.
We showed pictures last time, but no, it's been a month, so,
Yeah.
of that black fixture. or
That's
whatever
the
it was.
2006 fixture.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, we don't have the original.
Yeah, I'm like, what would it have originally? I don't know. Could have been square, but that was kind of more of a craftsman-y thing. So I think it's perfectly appropriate. I mean, I let everybody else chime in. That's just my opinion on that. Agreed?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree.
Okay.
It's the scale, it's the size.
Great.
Yeah. So bring an illustration, but I think you're getting good feedback on these. Mary, do you have something? No? Fencing? Anybody, any thoughts on the
I have
fence?
a lot of comments about that.
On the
So,
fence? Go ahead.
I think the fencing you're showing on West Main is in a completely different context, and I just think that is pretty heavy-handed for the type house you have. And so, in my opinion, what would fit in with the neighborhood and be more appropriate would be somewhat simplified. And are you planning on using brick post?
No, ma'am.
No, okay.
No, do you know those?
That one does have brick post.
Yeah, no, it was more the pickets themselves. Actually, we would do them further apart than that.
Looking for,
We're more thinking, trying to figure out exactly how to be specific about having height variation amongst them. And, we're pretty
I
open.
think height, to me, height variation is fine. I just feel, and I love this fence too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
But
beautiful.
I just think with the context of that neighborhood, you want to see it as a neighborhood and something just not that, I don't know what the word is.
I think it's pretty stylized. This
Stylized,
is.
right.
And I think simpler is going to be better.
And I think you use the stylized card on your house, so to make this simpler.
Got it.
But I think there is a scallop, simple one at the corner of Fifth and Margin,
Okay.
South Margin, something simpler in my mind.
I think most of the ones we see, especially on that vintage house, are that scalloped kind of, and still got pickets. And the pickets come in different varieties, but a lot of them are spear shaped. Some of them don't have any spear shape. They're just kind of pointed, but they kind of,
That's how the one is.
what's the word, jabot? Is that a old curtain?
That's the word.
Old curtain jabot?
Yeah.
Jabot. Anyways, look, I think to Mary's point is that that particular fence is really high kind of stylized because it's got two different shapes, two different heights, then pretty exaggerated posts. It's just a lot. In your specific neighborhood, most of the houses are very simple. You're getting some infill stuff that's a little more,
It's changed a lot in the last
Yeah.
few years.
a little something.
A whole lot.
But the historic homes there are fairly simple houses. I mean, your house originally was a pretty simple house.
Simple.
So keeping the fence just simplified, I like the idea of it, but see, that gets shorter at the middle, just barely, and taller at the edges.
Could you possibly bring up the house on the corner of Miles Manor and Franklin Road? I'm just curious if that's what you guys are thinking, sort of, it's like right
There's
right
one more
there.
drawing in their package that I'd like to look at too.
Okay.
Yep, if you just go down right, that fence on the right. Is that more what you're thinking?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
way
Much
simpler.
more.
Okay.
like-
And then could we just zoom on to Miles Manor real quick in front of Jasmine Grove and look at, because, I mean, I know these homes are built in the 90s, but they are very much designed to be like historic homes. These fences are more stylized, which is some of what we took inspiration from. But and
That's
we
not-
would not do
That
some
was
of
an
that.
infill project done before historic zoning.
Yeah.
And I don't know that those fences would have been approved.
Okay. But you do like the one on the corner?
Yeah.
The-
I don't think, you can tell all those are very similar, but one looks more appropriate than the other. And it's just those little scale things, the width of the pickets, all the connections. It's all those little things that make it right or not. So I think you're headed in the right direction. It's just simplifying what you had pulled up. If you were using that one on Main Street as precedence, like, well, that's beautiful, but just remember your house is
I
a
get
little,
it.
a little simpler than that one, and that's it. I think you're headed in the right direction.
And I think that, this fence is going to be much closer to your house than this is showing. This is a bigger house. It's white. It's a grander looking
It was moved
situation.
West Main Street, y'all. Worked on it.
Cool. It's a beautiful fence, and it's spectacular. But I do think that if you did something like this in front of your house, it would be sort of the fence that's wearing the house instead of the house with the fence. And I think that the simpler version would be a beautiful addition to what you're doing.
Okay. I understand, for sure. I
Yeah.
mean, it's trying to find the fine line between unique and then also
That's right.
appropriate and making
Yeah.
sure that,
I
but I
always-
see what you're saying.
I always describe it in music terms, since you're a music man. I tell clients, like, everything can't be the star of the show. I can make electric guitars sound good and the drums sound good and the vocals sound good, but if you mix it all together, something's got to take a back seat.
Sure.
Your fence has to be the back seat here because your house is just not that fancy. You don't want the fence to wear the house, right? So just let it sit back in the mix a little. It's still going to be beautiful and contribute and be great, but it's just got to sit back in the
Yeah,
mix.
I think with the landscaping and everything else that you'll do, it'll blend beautifully and look like it was always there.
I have one question to ask.
Kathy?
It's the drawing that's at the end of the package of the fence. Is that what you are proposing, or are we looking to the image?
There it is.
What is, explain this.
That was,
More
I
height.
submitted, I messed up the submission, so you're seeing two different things,
Okay.
unfortunately.
Just wanted to make sure.
Yep. And then the gutters and downspouts I just want to make sure.
I think staff was even said, yeah, that looks good.
Okay.
Copper's great, location's great. Anything, anybody?
The gutter next to the chimney, has staff commented on that? It was getting curvy, and I know we don't want it to read like a piece of a
Yeah,
still
It,
or something.
it might work better to just exaggerate your actual gutter section over to the chimney and then bring it straight down. Does that make sense? The actual gutter section
Got
that's
it.
right below the roof line, make it a little
Follow the-
longer
yeah.
over to the chimney, and then maybe not even follow the chimney line, just make that downspout perfectly straight down next to the window. Then it just, I think it'll stand out less, but that's
I
a
think it
design
let the
thing.
house show more than the gutter.
Yeah. That kink in the
If that
middle
makes sense.
will draw attention to itself.
Yeah, I can't remember whether the gutter sub or our contractor suggested that and basically allowing it to mirror the elbow on the chimney itself. So
Yeah.
to try to get it to disappear, but I see what you're saying.
Yeah, if you have a kink in the chimney, it's still got a kink. If you can just bring it straight down.
Yep.
All you do is exaggerate that one right side tail there, and you
Sure.
can bring it straight down.
Okay, great.
It's probably just the cleanest way to do it. But
Sounds good.
once it bronzes out against that dark paint,
Yeah.
nobody's gonna see it anymore.
And you wasted
So-
all your money on copper.
No,
No,
you bought something that you'll never have to replace.
you won't regret it.
I
Yeah,
know, we're excited.
yeah. Okay. Thank
All
y'all.
right.
Appreciate
Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much.
Almost brought pizza. I'll do it next time.
We can't take bribes. All right. Item number 6, discussion of new construction, 1855 William Campbell Court, Lot 11. Miss Lombard, did you get married?
I did.
And it's different now, right?
Yep, Ford.
What is it?
Ford.
Ford. Thought you said Lord.
Well,
It's
that's
like, he might call you that, but I'm not.
He does not.
All right, go ahead.
Okay, looking at Magnolia Hall, Lot 11. Again, we had made a couple of adjustments based on the feedback we received last time. We changed some of the windows on the left side to get those to have kind of a better historic rhythm. We made a few small adjustments to the front elevation. So got rid of kind of that tower element that we had and added another small gable just to balance the proportions of that roof, and a small dormer above the front entry door. I think we also, I'm losing track of my versions, but I think we also pulled the stone at the foundation down at the front in this one. So I think relatively minor changes. There wasn't a ton there, but just some further refinement and tweaks.
Okay. Anything else you want to walk us through on that?
No, I don't think there were any other real major changes based on the feedback
Okay.
last time.
Let's hear from staff then. I think Elizabeth has this one.
Thank you, and we'd like to thank the applicant for returning to another design review committee meeting for this lot as part of the Magnolia Hall subdivision. As a reminder, this is the final lot along the street and will be visible along Highway 96 and will be located closer to 96 than the historic mansion. The applicant has incorporated additional feedback into the design, and the building's massing has been broken up into additional pieces to assist the building reading like additions over time and more like a 1.5-story building. The building is proposed to be 29 feet 6 inches, which is shorter than the historic mansion at 34 feet 9 inches. Offsets, insets, and roof breaks are used to break up the massing. The roofing configuration is somewhat complex in comparison to the traditional roofing configurations and what is seen on the historic mansion. The guidelines recommend to reinforce and maintain roof forms and orientations of adjacent structures. One end of the primary ridge, there is a hipped roof, and on the other end is a gable, which appears to be a roof form that is not common in adjacent buildings. Additional details and ornamentation are proposed on the building with the proposed fish scale siding. Feedback about the proposed detailing as they relate to the architectural style in comparison to the historic mansion would be appreciated. The front porch configuration appears consistent with the location of porches seen on the street and on the architectural style. The columns proposed utilize a stone base and round column on top. The guidelines recommend to design porches with depths of at least 6 feet and simple columns and balusters to use wood or brick elements. A stone foundation is proposed around the building, and the guidelines recommend to use brick, concrete, or stucco or painted CMU for foundations. Feedback about the foundation configuration and materials would be appreciated. The front entrance is a set of double doors that appear to be 2/3 light and paneled and feature a transom window. And a number of different sized windows are proposed, as well as architectural windows on the front facade. The windows feature a 2/2 light pattern and have the appearance of being double hung. The windows in the gable on the front appear to intercept trim pieces. On the left elevation, a set of double windows appears to be located in a non-traditional location, not in alignment with the other windows. Feedback about the proposed window size and placement would be appreciated, as the guidelines recommend to maintain the rhythm and spacing of windows and door openings of adjacent structures and to not exceed the height and width ratios of windows and doors of adjacent buildings by more than 10%. Additional details about the finishes and reveals for materials, fence heights, light fixtures, window specifications are needed for additional feedback. Staff would appreciate feedback about the building and roof form, porch materials, windows, foundation, and details and ornamentation proposed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, anyone want to start?
Can I say one thing on the stone foundations?
Sure, go ahead.
We do have stone foundations on all of the other houses in the neighborhood.
Okay. Understood. I can start with a couple comments, I guess. I like the adjustments you made. Well, I feel like it's starting to at least look like a particular style. There was a little bit of this, a little bit of that. I agree with staff that this hip on one side, gable on the other is a little odd, and I think it might help the elevation and give you some more space to just gable that other end. just square it back off. And I think what it does in my mind is even though there's a lot of roof gymnastics going on behind, I think it puts at least the front of the house in somewhat of a pure format where you've got a main roof and you've got some appendages like the front facing gables, you've got a dormer. It will feel simple as opposed to, well, we've got a little hip here, we've got a gable there, and the hip accentuates the roof plane of that front facing gable in a way that I think it will stop and hit that gable and might truncate it a little bit, so making it feel a little more traditional. You've got these eave returns on the front gable there. You've got a little bit of eave return, it looks like, on the smaller gable, but the one on the left looks like it goes all the way to the windows. And I just keep thinking either they're too big and need to be culled back, or it needs to be just a full return all the way across, which may say something about your windows and sill heights. Which leads me to the other gable where the trim band has the windows set down inside the trim band. Might be worth, you have to deal with egress and all that stuff. That's your task. But either sitting on that being the sill and apron is that band for the windows or something. But that kind of intersection is a little odd to me. And then the only other thing on this front, I would love to see this porch with just full height columns sitting on the ground. I think it feels heavy for something that's kind of turning Victorian,
Yep.
Queen Anne-ish. It's like, it's awfully heavy for Queen Anne, which is all about delicacy and thin. So I like the stone foundation. All the other houses have it. But if those just piers came down, you had the stone base and just had full height wood columns, I think could just lighten up. Because right now the porch for some reason feels heavier than the rest of the house, even though it's all brick and all these things going on. Probably a similar comment on you have this stone with the water table at two different heights on this left side. If you could shorten those windows up or drop that water table around the rest of the house down to, it's on the left side gable here, just pick one or the other. Particularly on the front, that kind of jig jog is a little bit. And these are nitpicky things. I think overall the massing is much better. I have gone to more baseball games than I care to remember, going down 96 and Boyd Mill to the park. And every time I look at this lot, I'm thinking, we got to get this one right, because it is really close to 96. I mean, you're going to see this more than you see the mansion. So all the things you've done to adjust the roof line and pull that down and tuck it into the hill, I think those are going to pay dividends. We've talked about it's a little bit odd to kind of bury that one end of the house, but what we sacrifice there comes out of that 96 view in height and foundation sticking out of ground. So for me, that's a trade worth making to make it feel like it really isn't bigger than the mansion. Because it's a big house. I think it's 10,000 square feet. And it's, how much closer to the road is it? 100 and something feet closer to 96. So it's already going to look big because it's closer to the road. And then it, in fact, is big. So anything we can do to cull that down, which I think you've done, it seems like a simpler version than what we saw, is what I say. All right. Somebody else talk. Mary.
Can you show the picture with the height again to the mansion? I just want to feel real confident. Okay, thank you. I just wanted to see it again. I agree, the columns on the front, usually when you see a white column and then something different at the bottom, lots of times it's because the column rotted. And so every time I look at them, they affect me that way. I'd rather just it come down, clean column. The dormer on the front of the house looks like it's sliding down the roof. And I think that's because there's no space under the window.
Yeah, just a few inches there.
Just,
'Cause you got to
just
flash it and
A
all
little
that.
bit would
Yeah.
make a difference in my mind. And then I agree with what you said about the roof, which might give the opportunity just to have windows on that.
That's
one
right. There's a
side.
dormer there. You'll just get better windows.
Better
and more
windows, yeah.
volume,
That
which is
actually will
good.
help these front windows go up a little bit too, because those are egress right now.
But I think you made some great improvements. This is just so sensitive.
Thank you, Mayor.
And part of me goes, does the house really have to be that big? I'll just say that. We've got
It's a lot.
one of the landmark properties in Franklin, and the zoning did allow houses there. But do all of them really have to be that big? That would be a comment.
Yeah. It's definitely gotten a lot smaller. It's come down quite a bit.
And it's still 10,000 square feet.
Well, I mean, it's only like 65 condition.
Yeah, well, conditioned or not.
Yeah.
think it
Looks
was.
like 10.
Conditioned is 6,000,
Yeah.
and that's running about the same as other homes.
This is actually almost the smallest one now. It
Yeah.
used to be the largest.
Yeah.
And
So-
I agree with what other commissioners said. I think bringing that column down, getting rid of that stone, just having a longer column makes a huge difference. I think you've done a great, with bringing this house down, fitting into its lot. I don't think it's going to overwhelm the mansion. The mansion's got a lot of acreage with it, which makes a huge difference. But it is something that's going to be, at least in winter, is going to be viewed by 96. You can't really see it right now, but at least part of the year.
Jennifer, this front bay, will it have corner boards and all that? It's kind of shown as a mitered siding thing. It's probably
No,
just
it'll
not
have
that far
corner
along.
boards.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that was just,
And it might not be, it wouldn't be out of the ordinary when there's only that much siding to panel those two. And just be paneled out and it just all be trim. But I think siding could be okay too. It's just by the time you get corner boards and casing, that siding's going to be
It's not a
this
lot.
big. So, okay.
Um,
Kathy?
I think you have reduced the massing of it tremendously, just not so much, say, square footage wise, but just from the appearance of breaking up the roof line with those hips. I do like getting rid of the stone base to the columns, particularly where it meets the enclosed porch. So I think that's a nice detail to get the stone off of the base of those columns as it connects into the porch feature, but still leave your stone columns around the pool area. That's where I think it makes sense to pick it up. Leave that as that is. That reads well there, so it identifies. And that'll help the scale, I think, of it. Much more of an inviting front porch, and ties that back in with the screen porch, I think, a lot better. And easier detail to translate that. Do we have an elevation that would show, like you were talking about, Tyler, bringing that, instead of the hip, the gable out on the end? Do we have a view how that would, I think that would make that elevation look better for you
We
as
have-
that roof intersects that.
There's a 3D of it
Fireplace.
on page 7, the upper right-hand corner.
yeah, I think there's a.
There's
yeah,
a
it could be
colored
in a
one.
rendering. We had it that way
Go-
at one point, and I think we're
Did you?
concerned
Right there,
about the
upper
length.
right hand. So there's this dormer there, and all of a sudden you get the gable.
Yeah.
And then that roof plane isn't 2.5 rooms deep. It's
I think that'll help that
too.
elevation quite a bit.
a mask, all that.
So from the front, you get that nice framework that way. I don't think it'll add much to the massing, but it'll give a balance, because it looks like, if I kind of just squint my eyes and look at the blocking of the front elevation, it looks like it's been locked.
Sure.
And you talked about, Mary, the dormer on the front sliding off. Well, this one looks like it's sliding off too. Um, And I think it just gives more emphasis to your front elevation to do that anyway. But beautifully done. I mean, I know you've labored a lot on this one. And
Yes.
we've seen a lot of translations.
And I can see why you did that elevation the way you, because it does make it read somewhat smaller. And so my brain is going, so if we did that and you get a little more house, could the third bay garage on the side we're going to see from, yes, there, that would be amazing. If that could go away in my mind.
Oh, to pull back that roof, the second story over the garage? Is that what you're saying? Or
No,
lose
sir.
the third garage?
Lose
back?
the third garage.
I don't know if they're going to go for
I
that.
know.
I'll
I'm
let
just
you-
saying.
I'll let you have that conversation with Bernie and Dudley.
Yeah. Did you have anything, Angela?
No, I agree with everything that you all have said.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Holly?
It's come a long way.
Yeah, I agree
Good
with
job.
what you guys have said, and I think you've done a really good job with the front two-story, like what you had before that looked a lot more massive. I think it looks a lot better now, so I
Yeah.
think I really appreciate that.
Yes.
Okay. Anything else we should cover?
I think, was there anything else that y'all had questions about that didn't get answered?
Good.
Make
Okay.
sure we hit all those.
I have something else to ask you
Yes.
too, Jennifer.
Okay.
Like the fish scaling, how, is this the first time we've seen that as a
No.
fenestration?
We had
They
some
kind of come back and
on,
forth?
I think we had some on 5, and we might have done some on 2, the other Victorians.
Remember, we've approved some. Some. a
Yeah, I
little
know
bit
we've
of
got it on 5. I'm trying to remember if we also had it on 2. Little bit. And that could be a different material. It's just trying to have some I mean, you do see a lot of that. It could be a diamond. It doesn't always have to be a fish scale, but thinking that it would be
You know,
some
my-
kind of a shingle as opposed to just
Yeah.
lap siding.
Might be helpful too, just because it's been a long time since we've approved some of the others, is do an updated streetscape, just so we have it, just to go, okay, yeah, in scale with all these other ones, this is what this one looks like, and oh yeah, I remember we approved this and that on those. It's a helpful reminder, all
My
that.
concern with the fish scaling is when I look at the front elevation and I look at how you've dropped the sill height of the windows and it drops down on the right and then it's up. If I'm doing fish scaling in both of those features, they're not lining up. And so I'm getting this asymmetry with the windows and the fenestration with the fish tailing. I'm not sure how that's going to give you, I'm not sure that's going to read well. It could read a little like we missed the mark here, like, oops, something's wrong with our windowsill height. And they need to speak together, I think. So when you do that fenestration, whatever it is, I do like that you're changing it up. I think that's great. And I like how you've repeated it on other gables throughout all the way around the building, but the home. But we're getting into those little bitty inches here where finishing it out really makes a difference.
Okay, thank you. You good? Thank you so much, appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, item number 7, discussion of alterations to approved plans on a principal building at 1309 Adams Street. Mr. McCreary. Mary's throwing back cold ones.
That's right. Is that an energy drink so you can keep going?
If you know Mary, you know she needs no energy drinks.
No, she doesn't need any help.
All right, Mr. McCreary, if you'd like to walk us through what's new here, please.
Hey, well, I'm actually coming back and wanted to discuss a little bit more detail about the dormer because we had incorporated some comments on it from previous DRCs, but we did notice that in the HCC it was a condition of approval to not have this dormer. So I wanted to come back because we had, like I said, some not negative comments on it before, where it seemed like the commission was receptive to it. And so I wanted to talk through what would be the things that continue to hang it up and what might be some paths forward. So our biggest kind of the ask that we are requesting is that this is a very, in the grand scheme of the project, it's a small dormer. It has a very small profile. It does have the step backs from the existing structure that are required by zoning or by the documents, 30 inches away from the original building on the end. And we are aware that it is a shallow slope, but we do have, the building is not very tall in and of itself. And again, this is a reconstruction, not a full rehabilitation or a restoration of a historic structure that is an existing thing. So we've already taken some liberties with modern features on this house already. So we feel that this dormer is in keeping with kind of what has already been approved for the project. And we would just love to answer any questions you all have to kind of see what would be a path forward for it, right? It's very small. As you can see from these, we've kind of added these 3Ds to give you more of an idea of how small it is in relation to the overall project and how it's tucked very far back behind both the front gable and the cross gable. In reality, the only way you may ever see it is really if you're standing in the side yard. Really, from the backyard, it is completely blocked by the rear gables. From the front and from the right side, the gables block it. So that's kind of that's why we're back with this one. We just wanted to talk about it a little more, ask for feedback on how it might be a possibility.
Okay. Let's hear from Elizabeth, please.
Thank you. The applicant has returned for additional perspectives for consideration of the dormer-like element at 1309 Adams Street. The perspective shows the distance from the side elevation for which the element is set back 13 feet. However, the pitch and roof placement have not been changed and do not align with the guidelines and are not supported. Additional feedback based on the new perspectives for consideration would be appreciated for the applicant. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Do you have something?
There's a section cut as well on another document, if that might be helpful, so you can kind of understand the space inside there and kind of what we're working with. It's on 301.
301.
Mm-hmm.
2, 3. There we go.
So those, you can kind of see how it's tucked inside the gable itself. It's not this big cavernous thing that we are asking for up on the top. It's still very small, and we've kind of squished it as much as we feel is comfortable to make it still usable. So.
Okay. Any feedback, anybody? Mary?
So it is going to be the same height as the roof of the house. Is that correct?
It is stepped down from the main gable.
It's stepped down.
Yes.
It's about that much.
It's
Okay.
I'm looking at that section.
The thing that has made me not be a fan of this is we're losing the main form, in my mind, of the house that was originally there. And I don't know if it even maybe came out further and lined up with where the little window that looks like a bathroom window, if it came to that corner and lined up, would you read the main form of the house better? I
don't know.
That is where my concern is, though, is just trying to appreciate what was there and what we're trying to replace with infill because it was such bad condition.
Mr. Chair, can I interject too?
Go ahead, Kathy.
I understand exactly what you're saying, but, and Ben, thank you for these two bird's eye views, which sometimes it helps clarify things, but then sometimes this is not how we see it in the real world. You will never see this
On
little
top.
addition. I think if, to your point, Mary, if we brought it more to form fit the existing part of the house, that would have a reverse effect.
Effect on it.
And remember, we're viewing this from the ground.
Yes,
So I think they've accomplished,
but you're going to view it from a distance too.
yes, but
on
it's
that
still hiding
street.
behind the ridge, the front
Okay.
ridge and the return ridge. So that's the existing part of the home. So I appreciate that you've tucked it back there, and only now seeing that little section, it's like you're not being greedy, you're just trying to get what you can get.
And I understand that. I mean, there isn't a lot
Right.
to find space. I get that part.
Right. So to making it bigger, I would hesitate
I don't know.
to suggest that, but I think there you read the form, and then it's really not interfering.
Okay.
Actually, stepping it back makes it look like an addition to the original, so that exonerates the original to me.
Yeah, I think what I've heard from a lot of folks is this kind of view, seeing some of it. It is kind of a non-traditional dormer of sorts, right? It's like, okay, if it were just the piece with the windows and not the connecting bridge piece that ties in, would we think of it differently? I keep wondering if you can reduce the size of that bonus room to pull it in, but that's all of a sudden going to raise the window sills and all kinds of things get more complicated. So it's like, well, then you're going to have squatty windows really high up, and that's going to look weird in its own sense. So it's always been to me about, if it were really, if you could say, you cannot see this from any street view, period. That might be a game changer, right? But we know we're going to see a little bit of it if you look for it, and you're going to have to know it's there. Somebody's going to have to point it out. But I don't think it's that visible, first of all. And I don't think it's all that non-traditional. I mean, lots of people put sheds. They're usually running the other direction, right? But when I look upstairs and you've got a room, I mean, that mass up there is 22 feet wide. So that's a garage depth by 13 feet wide plus another 7. It's a big room. But like I said, if he reduces that, all of a sudden it's like, well, now we're going to get even more probably a funny form because it's going to be way up on the roof and the windows are going to be funny if it even can have windows anymore. So I think if you're going to have space up here, this is probably the most common sense approach to it. It's just a matter of how much are we going to see. We're not going to see the roof of it ever. You just can't. It's too shallow and too tucked back. So you won't see any roof, but we'll see some siding. We'll see the windows a little bit, and that's about it. We're not going to see the little connector bridge from any public right of way. I don't even know if neighbors can see the little connector.
The side of the house, the other side, which I think is tremendously successful, you won't see much.
won't see it at all.
This you will, because the houses are lower, and
Oh.
just the way that street is, you
Yeah.
will see this. What gets me confused is I do not believe we would approve this if this were a historic home. I do not believe that. We just had a conversation about a skylight. So I don't think, per our guidelines, this
Yeah.
form would be approved. And that is where
Well,
I'm
I think the difference in for example, the skylight thing, that was a pyramid shaped roof. So it has a different roof shape that doesn't
That's
hide
right.
anything behind it. This
That's
has
true.
full gables on
That's
both
true.
ends. So it's a little different.
But you do see, you're going to see that
Oh,
as
yeah.
you go down the street.
Well,
To
yes.
say
But
you're
it
not,
seems
only-
minimized.
Only
It's gonna be
until
a peak.
the other house blocks it.
Yeah.
I mean,
that-
it'll be
okay.
just
What
a
I'd
tiny
say,
little view.
Mary, this section that's the connecting bridge that has
Yes.
no windows, we will never see that.
Okay.
For sure, you will see about this much of
Okay.
this. And that's in best case
Well, I
scenario.
will
You're going to
just-
see the first couple feet of the dormer.
Yeah, that view, that 3D perspective, that is kind
Mm-hmm.
of the most extreme that I think you will ever be able to see of it, is that little kind of
Okay.
triangle corner
A
of
little piece of window.
Yep.
Okay.
No roof and no connecting piece of roof.
Excuse me, too, didn't you shorten the dormer too?
We have shortened it and actually pulled it back. We've kind of squished
Yeah,
it
you
down based
shortened
on
it
previous
some.
comments
Right.
already.
Grab that wall where the roof slopes in, so it makes that little point. So
Yeah.
it kind of went back and then, so it was longer.
It did go further out towards the back gable before, and it actually pushed first
I
of
think
it to
that's
the
a
side.
considerable
so.
help.
I agree.
I
Yep.
think also that,
Go ahead, Bob.
I've drove down this like 10 times this weekend, going back and forth and trying to look out the corner of my eye to see what I would see. You'll see a peak of it, but I think what's going to be a huge help to that roof line is this addition. Your eye's going to be drawn further back. The house is not just stopping right there. It
Yeah.
keeps going.
Well, and I think what we do see of it does look more like a traditional dormer, as if it were just the dormer with the two windows. If you didn't walk in the yard and go look, you'll never know that even existed. So it looks like from the street a traditional dormer. It's a shed dormer, which is pretty common, especially this style of house. Oftentimes had a rear-facing gable added on, and then they would sometimes peel up the roof to give a little bit of volume. And I think that's what this is going to look like, even though there's a little connecting piece that nobody's going to see. So I don't have a problem with this as it's shown. I mean, it's hidden enough, and it looks like a traditional dormer from any public view shed, and that's really what I think the guidelines are aiming at. Is now, if this were pulled out further, all of a sudden we get into that discussion where this looks like a two-story house, and it's not. I don't think this looks like two-story. It looks like a dormer. It's way back on the roof. I mean, how far back on the roof is it? It's a dimension down here. It's like 12 feet back.
Away from the edge,
Yeah,
it's 13. some
yeah.
change.
So it's, and our rules say a foot. This is 13 times that. So it's going to sit pretty far back. But I don't think your concerns are
Gonna
invalid.
trust that.
I don't think your concerns are invalid. I think
Mhm.
they've got the geometry set up to satisfy those
I hope
things that
so.
you're concerned about. It's
I
tucked in
hope
as
so.
tight as it can go.
Of course, I hope so.
Did this house ever have a second story? Or is all this brand new? Well, yeah, it's so, I want you to maximize what you can, but at the same time, it's like, you're getting a big addition. It's a lot. It's a lot to ask for.
I appreciate that section too. That was
Yeah.
helpful to see how much you kept within the,
Yeah, I mean, it's
outline.
not a big box, right? We're kind of inside the gable and everything, so we're kind of just trying to
Most-
squeeze it in there. And the
It
stair
helps.
takes up
Reads as
a fair
one
chunk
half.
of that, which, we've got to get up to it. So, I mean, there's.
So most
there's
of that room is
constraints.
in the main front-facing gable. Well, that T that goes back.
The T. It's in
Yeah.
the T that goes back.
Yeah.
off the
So that front-facing gable there goes through. That's most of that room is that. Okay. Any other feedback?
No,
Angela?
I feel like you have worked hard to make this more sensitive, and I do think that you've minimized it as well as it could be, given that you are adding that.
Anything?
That's it.
Okay. I'm
Thank
gonna
you.
leave you at it. Thank you
All
so
right.
much. Appreciate it. All right. What time is it? Okay, number 8, discussion of new construction and accessory structure at 1010 Fair Street. Mr. McCreary again.
I'm back. I would have walked away, but it felt like it might have been awkward. Great. So this is hopefully it's a garage. That's 1010 Fair Street is already an existing primary residence. So this is adding a garage where there is currently no accessory structure on the site. There is an existing pool and some hardscape that is in that area. And so we are basically putting this new garage at the end of the existing drive footprint. The size of the garage is subservient to the house. It is, you can kind of see in that top right image, I think it's around, I can't remember the exact dimension, let me see. Internet. So it's about 6 feet shorter than the main house. There's really no topography on the site between the two buildings, so they're kind of, the floor lines are at the, I mean, it will be shorter. The house is built up maybe 8 to 12 inches just because of its construction. So the garage will be 8 to 12 inches, below that, and then again, that's 6 feet. So we have taken the form of the main house. Basically, it is a simple kind of big, just gable across the front with a shed roof porch. So we've taken that, really the side gable form, and kind of created them so that they're 90 degrees to each other, parallel. So that is the existing house. And we've tried to we're using the same kind of detailing with the different trim bands and things like that to connect between the parcels. So the front is fairly straightforward, 2 carriage-style doors. We'll have wood siding, lap siding that will match the exposure on the main house. And then as you get towards the back, the one unique feature that we are asking for is this kind of smaller shedded area off of the rear of this structure that has a fireplace in it. So we've tried to continue to break the massing down as it goes further back on the site. To kind of give this idea that potentially maybe this thing was an added on later, kind of giving it a story to kind of how it evolved over time. The size of the way that the chimney is in its height, you see it in the full-on 3D or the full-on flat image. You can kind of see it poking up over the kind of right side of that front gable. But in reality, it's pretty far back perspective. It will be, we don't believe that it will be visible. I can provide a 3D image, for future meeting if that's necessary. But really, because it's smaller and further back, we feel like it's consistent with that. So, and we have there's no second story in it. We have windows. That was kind of an owner request to break up the side massing and things like that. There are dormers on the main house, on the rear addition of it. So it is not something that is foreign on the property. So that's kind of the broad strokes.
Okay. Let's hear from Emily, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The property located at 1010 Fair Street is located in the Hinchyville National Register Historic District and the principal building is considered a contributing circa 1920 1.5-story bungalow. The proposal includes the construction of a new accessory structure. The structure appears appropriately placed, subordinate in height, and appropriate size per the zoning ordinance, and only 15% of the lot, and is also complementary to the architectural style of the principal building per the guidelines recommendation. The guidelines do recommend not utilizing chimneys on accessory structures, so the proposed chimney does not align with the guidelines. However, the chimney is placed so that it would not be highly visible from the street. Clarification is needed to understand which garage door is being proposed, as there are 2 different options within the plans. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right. Any feedback? Mary?
Could we see it in the context of the lot?
Want to see a site plan?
Where it's
Right at the end of that drive down there?
right there. Okay.
It's a couple feet back behind the other garage on the property adjacent.
Looks like it's 31 feet 4 inches from the back of the house to the garage. That's what I'm reading.
That sounds about right.
Okay. Anybody have some feedback? Kathy?
Is this the first time we've seen this?
It is.
Is that a wood burning fireplace?
I believe that's the intention.
And our guidelines don't recommend a fireplace on an addition?
No, ma'am. On an accessory structure.
Accessory structure?
Right.
But it is not unheard of. There
Not
are
unheard
there are projects that have fireplaces on accessory structures.
This is kind of weird because it's like a patio, but I keep thinking, all right, if somebody comes back and wants to enclose that, I know since I've been on the commission, we've told people no to fireplaces in accessory buildings. But this is like, it's not in the accessory building yet.
Yeah.
It's
Right.
just,
Like an inside outside?
yeah, it's like if you had a pergola and you did one, would we still consider it? I think that's the clarification. It's like, well, this is a little unique in that respect.
My other thought too was wood burning versus gas or electric, or, not the ones that you can't even tell they're a fireplace from the outside. That it services just as a feature on the inside. And that's what this seems to appear to be. So I don't know if that makes a difference with our guidelines, if it's not a full-blown fireplace looking from the outside, or if it's one of those little mystery ones.
Are you asking if this one looks like it's full blown or not?
I'm just rattling around
Oh.
the ideas, like
Yeah.
with our guidelines saying no fireplaces. If I make it not look like a fireplace.
I think it's the chimney thing, right?
I see.
It's that
Right.
chimneys aren't historically seen on accessory buildings.
Correct.
And then you don't have the issue of hiding, you got to have the height for the chimney. So you don't have to hide it behind the highest point of the house.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Well, we like the authenticity of the fireplace being the fireplace.
But
Um,
this is way back, so
It is
That's-
way back.
the advantage here. I would, if the dormer is serving no purpose, I don't think garages generally have that feature.
Well, it's not that it's no purpose, right? I mean, it's still attic space. It's not big enough
Okay.
to be habitable.
Okay.
Like
But
it
it's gonna
can't be
add
made
storage.
into, yes.
Okay.
I was going to say I'd love to see that double hung on the front, just a little bit lower sill. Looks a little short. All the proportions of the garage door, and we have to exaggerate the eaves of garages now because garage door openers need X amount of space and structures thick, all the things.
Sure.
And then we frame on top of the floor, not the walls now. So making the window a little longer is going to cheat the eye into, oh, it's not quite as tall as it actually is. Because
Right.
it is, they're all a little taller than historic ones. The chimney thing, I would entertain the idea that this could be okay because of its placement and because it's not in enclosed space. Because the alternative is you could say, well, we're going to add this porch on the back of the house. And we're going to just do it there. And we'd go, well, what's the difference then? So I could entertain that, and I feel like I could make that make sense with the guidelines if that thought registers there. What I'd say about the chimney height is, as you know, there's a very specific code to it, and it looks like it's maybe a little taller than even code would require. If the code's 2 feet above roof within 10 feet, then make it the 2 feet. Don't make it 3. Don't
Sure.
make it, 30 inches. Just meet the code because it's. We're talking inches here could make a
Sure.
difference in whether we see something or not down this drive. So, and then the dormer, is fine. What I would say is, if you're going to do a dormer, those windows and that shape wouldn't be the traditional shape. It would probably have been 3 skinnier double hungs, and it would have been pulled out enough to get a real double hung, and not
Sure.
these kind of square windows up higher on the roof. So if you're going to do it, just make it look like an old shed dormer with traditional window openings. Sometimes you'd see some with just an upper sash, but we're talking very fewer examples than just regular double.
Sure.
There's some in town where people just use like a upper sash, but that's what I'd say about if you're going to do the dormer and you're going to have light in the front. So I don't have a problem with it. Anything else, anybody?
Is this going to be wood or gas?
The fireplace? The intention is for it to be wood. It will at least be a wood burning insert, whether they put in, or not an insert, a wood burning fireplace, whether they put in a gas log set or not.
Well, you know,
I don't-
that would be something, having just been working with the project. I don't know, as far as fire codes go, and that's really not our purview, but that would be reviewed by them.
Yes, we would design it to be compliant with code.
Angela, Bob?
I don't feel like I have anything to add.
Okay. Nothing.
I mean, it's unusual to me to see it on the back of the garage, but it, you know,
It's
that-
on
the
access
patio
with the
plays
pool.
well with the pool
Yeah.
and the patio, so.
Yeah. Kathy?
Along with a little more detailing on your windows, also the columns that are in the
Sure.
open thing area, show us with those,
Okay.
fancy those up a bit.
All right.
And then is that like lattice and a screen door?
No, just screen. That's just our
Okay.
hatch pattern for screen.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, just give us some more fluff.
So it's screened
Sure.
on the back, chimney wall.
screened on the, if you're looking at the plan, it's on the right side of the chimney. Well, if you're looking
Then
at
it's
the
enclosed
left
on the
side.
other two
It's
sides.
enclosed on the two. There is a pool equipment, so you can kind of see in the plan, there's kind of this half circle up there in the top. That's
see.
the pool equipment.
Okay.
So part of it was we kind of wanted to protect that interior space from the pool equipment. So that's why it's a solid wall on the left side of the fireplace and then a half wall with screening on the right.
Okay.
And then full retractable screening on the front.
Right. Understood.
Am I correct in thinking it will sit further back than the garage next door? Or is it going to, if you'll show, just show that
Okay.
when you come,
Sure.
the
Some
context.
edge. Okay. That's a good idea. All right, anything else?
That's all.
Feel
Thank
good?
you.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. All right, we're 2 hours in. Let's take a 5-minute break. Actually, let's come back at 6:05 and we will be on item number 9. Yes, discussion of the demolition, accessory structure, and new construction of an addition, a principal building at 234 4th Avenue North. Mr. Gamble is all listed as the person to blame.
Yeah, so my name's Daniel Kiedis, a building owner, and these guys have been rocking it for us. I'm just going to give a quick context before I hand it over to some smarter people than myself. So we were here, if y'all remember, back in January and had a great conversation. Y'all were super helpful. We got through HZC through the primary building, and we're off to the races on permits for that, which has been great. In the context of that conversation, we had a really helpful for us conversation around the accessory building, which, as we understood, is not conforming or not contributing, excuse me. And thanks to y'all's comments, we realized because of the floodplain, 4 overlays, 2 design concepts, like we really needed to kind of engage more counsel, and have had a lot of help just to really think through this more comprehensively. You had asked us to come back with a site plan so that we could consider, generally what you all had said previously was favorable to the idea of removing this structure, but needed to see in the context of what we would be doing in its place. So we've been working hard with the team here to try to come up with something that we feel like will be a really helpful addition, not only for our purposes, but for the lot itself. So with that, I'll turn it over to them.
Hi, I'm Greg Gamble. I'd like to give you a little bit of background on the property just so that you have a little bit more context. So if you go to slide 2, this is its location. It's on 4th Avenue. This is 234 4th Avenue. It's not on the corner of Margin. There's another lot in between. On the zoning map, the site, the property labeled site, is actually zoned office residential, which means that anything new there has to be built in a residential form. It can have one principal structure and an accessory structure. So it's kind of treated like it's a single-family residential home, but office is a permitted use on this property. The property directly adjacent to it, those that front onto Margin Street, those are in the 5th Avenue district. And on those properties, parking can be under the building. So that's one of the unique aspects of the 5th Avenue district. So on the next slide, this shows the extents of the 100-year floodplain from the Harpeth River. You can see that about 2/3 of the property at 234 is currently within the 100-year flood limits. And the accessory structure that we'll be talking about today is also within the 100-year floodplain. So this is the location. The accessory structure that we're talking about today is the garage. It's the building shown in blue. The current parking that is there for the historic structure is insufficient to park the square footage as office. The driveway does not meet the current width requirements for parking in the city of Franklin's parking standards. And there's not a clearly defined ADA accessible handicap parking space. So those are some things that would need to be improved for the historic home to be used as an office. Any structure that's in the floodplain, if you make improvements to it above 50% of the value of that structure, it has to meet today's current codes. So we would very likely have to raise this accessory structure up above the floodplain if it were to be reinvested in. At one point in time, it served as a garage. You can go to the next slide for me. This is the National Registry. The next slide, it lists the principal structure as contributing, built around 1935. And the next slide, it's listed on the National Registry. The accessory structure is non-contributing, estimated its construction about 1970. I think Emily Heffer has some additional information on that she'll share in a little bit. On the next slide then, it does sit back 103 feet from the asphalt on 4th Avenue. It sits in the rear yard of the principal structure. On the next slide, I'll hand it to Brandon, and we'll start talking a little bit more about the architecture. How's that? Yep. I guess I should say, as as office, the principal structure as office, this proposed site plan would park sufficiently for that use.
Okay. Mr. Pretty?
I'm Brandon Pretty with 906 Studio Architects. So essentially what we did was take the use of what was in that accessory structure, that space, and really tried to reconfigure it behind the main building, doing a few things. First, to Greg's point a moment ago, freeze the site up to meet the current site requirements, to be much more efficient. Would have probably about the most efficient use of it. It's going to visually screen any sort of addition or anything behind the main house, let it kind of maintain primacy on the site. And then also it's going to keep any sort of new construction out of the floodplain. Really, at this point, all the vertical construction is going to be out of the floodplain, which obviously is a great thing moving forward, preserving tree canopy on the back. For the architecture, we tried to keep it pretty simple. Take cues, you can see some of the images here, take cues from the existing home. You always want to differentiate between the new addition and the existing. We kept a little stone skirt at the bottom, making reference to the existing historic stone home, but went with just some vertical board and batten siding. Again, just a very simple form. A little secondary entry. This would actually provide the accessible entry into the structure. This proposed work would go over top of where the current accessible entry is. So this provides that as well. And again, you can see it setting back behind the historic structure. So again, the view from the street would be pretty minimal. Included an exhibit here, just a very simple mass model showing the addition in blue. And as you're kind of moving along the street, you can again see the lack of visibility there.
Okay. Let's hear from Emily, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the property that is located at 234 4th Avenue North is located in the downtown Franklin National Register Historic District. The National Register of Historic Places considers the existing principal building contributing and the accessory structure non-contributing. The proposal includes the demolition of the accessory structure and in addition to the principal building. The guidelines highly discourage demolition unless there are extraordinary circumstances so as to maintain the integrity and sense of place associated with Franklin's historic district. Demolition may only be approved if the Historic Zoning Commission deems one or more of the following conditions met. If a building has lost its architectural and historical integrity and its removal will not adversely affect the historic district's character. If the denial of the demolition will result in an unreasonable economic hardship on the applicant as determined by the Historic Zoning Commission, and if the structural instability or deterioration of a property is demonstrated through a report by a structural engineer or architect with demonstrated experience working with historic structures. None of these criteria have been included within the application to support the demolition request. Further, more information has been found that does show that the building is older than the National Register had previously estimated. And I will pull those up. So this image on the screen is of the National Register building survey from 1972, and the pink arrow is pointing to the proposed structure that is being proposed to be demolished. The next image, let's see. Bear with me. Okay, so this next image is from 1950, and it is an aerial of downtown, once it loads for us, showing this structure. And so you can see it here by the gable end. Then the next image
is from the 1948 flood. So if you zoom in by the arrow, you can see the structure, the gable. So it is up to the Historic Zoning Commission to determine if it is contributing to the historic district. For the request, so that is for the demolition, to move on to the proposal for an addition, the request to construct an addition to the principal building, information is needed to determine the historic footprint of the principal building and if the proposed addition is appropriately sized. In terms of materials, it may be more appropriate to utilize horizontal lap siding on the addition so that it would blend better with other elements seen on the building. On this elevation, you can see that there are different roof lines, that one is a hipped and one is gabled. For the entrance, the guidelines recommend designing doors and doorways to an addition to read as secondary in appearance and detailing to the historic building. The main entrance to the historic building is a simplified entrance, just a 15-light door. So the double door with detailing, it does appear to be a little bit more elaborate than the front door. Several project considerations were left on the project review. I did want to highlight one of them that states, while it's not on the plans for approval, the proposed addition appears to be bringing the existing structure into the 100-year floodplain. It is recommended to reach out to staff and schedule a meeting to discuss the proposed addition and floodplain requirements that could give significant impact on the design of the addition. Thank you.
So what was that last one, the new additions in the floodplain?
Yes, so
It is, no, we specifically kept, I think there's, I don't know if we've got an overlay that shows both the addition and the floodplain. You can barely see it on page 9. There's a little white line that represents the floodplain, and you can see that, back, yeah, other way, there you go. If you zoom in, that little white line.
Okay. Yeah, I thought that was the whole point was,
Yep.
okay. Yeah, I was like, what are we talking about then? Okay. So it's this white line that runs through the woods, cuts out towards the parking lot, runs down the parking lot. That's the one, because there's a bunch of white lines, but
Yeah.
that's the one, that's the floodplain.
And I did want to provide that the accessory structure would not need a variance to be raised, as that is not something that is required if it is used for storage and/or parking.
Storage or garage, it doesn't have to be raised.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Let's hear from some commissioners here. Kathy, thank you.
I was confused too, because on page 3 about the floodplain, it showed the little blue water flood, and it looked like it was on a good portion of the site where you were gonna do the addition. So that was my question too, was like, wait, that slide confused me. But the other little white line one is different than this one, right?
We see the white line in this one and the blue. And I'm assuming the blue is just some
That's supposed to be-
GIS overlay or something, and then
It's the 100-year floodplain.
yeah. One of them's an official survey, I would assume.
I wouldn't think so. The
So
fringe overlay is
just take
based
the
on the
wrong one
concept.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's
I
some
think the-
confusion there.
I think the answer is going to be, the addition is going to be out of the floodplain, to your point. Otherwise, that kind of negates a pretty big part of
Okay.
the exercise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
So-
when I was going through the slides, I'm like,
Yeah.
where are we
No, I'm
going?
not, yeah, I don't quite know.
Are you gonna ask for variance on half your buildings in it, or, I don't
Yeah,
know, but no.
Not sure what the,
Wrong,
we'll certainly clarify that discrepancy, but
Thank
the
you.
intent is to be out of the floodplain.
absolutely.
Yep.
Kathy, can you talk to the, or if you're ready to, no, the demolition? Whether that building in its, as it sits, would, you would feel like it's contributing, and I think we know it's a little older than initially thought,
Yeah.
but what's your feeling on it?
Yes and no. I appreciate staff finding those other images of it being there. So yes, from a standpoint of that it's been there for longer than what we originally thought. And then also too, it's not falling apart. Or did you show us some other, have you brought this before us?
We've seen this building a few
Demolition,
times.
Yeah, it's in pretty bad shape under the,
There's some pretty significant deterioration from termites. We've got some pretty big gaps in the block. I think Daniel had provided some images there. We would certainly provide a more detailed
yeah.
report to
For demo, you
substantiate
have
that, but it's
criteria
deteriorated.
to meet on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I think we saw some proposals to replace those doors, and I think the previous folks were maybe going to use this in situ.
Sorry, I think that proposal in the past was approved, I believe.
Yeah. I guess the issue here is if they figure out what this building's worth money-wise, and they spend more than 50% of that, it has to be brought up to code in some format, and that code may not require it being raised if they're just going to use it for storage and parking, but that may not be what they need it for. So that's kind of the road.
Addition,
This accessory, yeah. Okay. Mary, do you have any thoughts on this garage, the demo?
I mean, we've taken a hard stand on it all over town, but it's in the flood area.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
that, and if you had to raise it, I mean, to me, it would really be worse looking to the district.
Well, we've looked at some other buildings in the vicinity here that are in the floodplain that are of a much different scale than this.
Well, we had the
Yeah.
one house that
Yeah.
was raised, that was.
That's right.
Right.
But I'm thinking of,
But it was a whole
what's
historic home.
the storehouse thing? What's that one called?
Yes.
But that row of buildings, as I recall, have been impossible to lease because
Some of them.
juice bars raised.
Raised.
It's hard to do something with them. Did you have something?
I just want to clarify for the conversation that the accessory structure would not have to be lifted, even if it hits the 50%
Even if
improvement,
it's
because
a-
it is an accessory structure and it's only to be used for storage or garage and parking
Yes,
of cars.
It limits the use of it.
Right, that's
but
what we're
it
saying, yeah.
doesn't have to be
It
raised.
does not, it is
Right.
not required to be raised, no
Right.
matter how much money goes into
But if
reinvestment.
if they wanted to use it for office, it would have to be raised.
They could not use it for office.
Right.
Because it is an accessory structure
Right.
in the floodplain. So it's very limited in what
Okay.
future use could be for it to parking or storage.
Right. Okay. I think that was my understanding of it was could be kind of spruced up and used in situ if they needed that use, but
But if it were not in the floodplain, and I hope you can correct me, Kelly, if it were not in the floodplain, little apartments or things like that are allowed as accessory structures.
that's
So
right. Yes,
that's
she's
where-
nodding yes for the record.
Yes, that's where I
Yeah.
was trying to go with the,
I think that's one of the complicating
What?
factors here is it's
Mhm.
like, yes, it's been meddled with a little bit.
I was going to say, I'm not an expert on contributing versus non-contributing. It was listed on the National Registry as non-contributing, but age isn't the only factor.
That's right.
right.
And the National Register is not the only deciding thing. We can decide to make any structure in any district contributing that we feel like is contributing. So that's what we're discussing is this contributing or not? As it goes for outbuildings in Franklin, it's not one of the more ornate ones. It never was. That doesn't mean it's bad or good. It just means it's pretty plain.
I just really don't know the history
I
of
don't
this
either.
building, so I think that would be helpful.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah.
Because when you look at the usability of it, it gets complicated. I would say if I were going to be reviewing it, saying, oh, yes, it can be torn down, what the drawing has that I think a lot works of what the drawing, but what doesn't work to me at all is looking like you've got an urban sidewalk going down the side of the house. I think that's very uncharacteristic of the historic district, and there's other ways to do that, get the same function.
Okay. Did y'all have any feedback on this garage or any thoughts other than what everybody said?
I don't know about this. It's hard for me to say. I mean, if you just looked at this without the house and this the other building, it seems to me that it detracts from the stone building. And certainly, functionally, as a lot, it makes more sense to do what they're proposing and streamlines what this looks like from the front. But that's not necessarily what we need to vote on, so I'm deferring to y'all's expertise on this.
Yeah. It's a good point. I hadn't thought of it as, that accessory structure is not.
It detracts from the stone building.
They don't go together.
No, not at all.
Not in their current configuration of the accessory building.
No. How
what
old is
they're
the house? Do we remember how old the house is? Ish?
19, I think 30.
1930s.
35 is
I thought you said 1830s. I was like, I'm sorry, but I don't know where you got that from, but that's wrong. Okay.
1935.
1930, 1935. Okay.
And
And
if
then-
you looked at the Sanborn map again, there was another structure that was in front of this structure, between the structure, and so you just pointed out there in the dark purple.
Ah.
And that's, it would have been obstructed historically.
So it's really in the back of house. I mean, it's obviously a utility building, as most accessories were. Not all of them, but
Right.
it's a utility block building.
Yeah.
So, Bob, did you have anything on the demo? And then we will talk about the addition stuff.
I mean, I'm listening to what y'all are saying. I think it's kind of conflicting that it's in the floodplain. That kind of throws up some strange questions.
Yeah.
And then showing the Sanborn map that there was a structure in front of it. So it's kind of out of context from what it was originally.
Yeah, they definitely don't go together. I mean, there's a disconnect that Angela pointed out. So, all right, let's talk about the addition. I think we've heard a little bit about it. Mary, you commented on the sidewalks. I think you have to have some continuity of path to public way for emergency stuff. But look at that. Do it as kind of. It should still feel like an old house when it's done, if that makes
Right.
sense.
And in the context of the whole neighborhood, you just don't see an urban sidewalk shooting down the side of a house.
And
Right.
a piece of that may be the function of the rendering itself a little bit.
That's what
If you-
there's
yeah.
ways to handle that. That's nothing
The location
you
is,
can't get around.
the location is a function of,
Yeah.
we've got to hit the ramp to provide the accessible route in. But I think if you even came back further, you're seeing the parking lot to the right, and it's not, people aren't holding hands walking up and down that sidewalk.
Well, doesn't sound very fun to me.
There's other sidewalks for that.
And I would say I agree with staff on the horizontal siding to be a little bit
Well, yeah, we've got siding on the house now.
sympathetic to the house.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that as well.
So to match the gable end, basically,
Well, just if you've got, it's a stone house, but there's gable ends and dormers now that have siding. Just use the same, similar siding. This entry door thing, I think just trying to find a way to, get your ADA access and your turnarounds, but I think it is a little celebrated here. There's a lot going on. You got brackets and a canopy. All those things are nice to have, but then there's the transom and double doors. It's like if you can,
There's a way to simplify that.
yeah, because you've got, if it was a thing where like, oh, we got to load things in and out of a space, well, you've got this big garage door thing on the back. Use that. Because I think this, especially while these lots are empty and even when they're not, I think you're going to see this door.
It kind of reads as a party barn, and there's ways to have the same size and do it that it doesn't.
Great.
So no concerns about the accessible entrance being there. It's more of just the presentation of that, right? Because I know we've talked about this part before in bringing this back up to code for commercial use. We're trying to stay away from the front of the building. Those doors aren't big enough. We're trying to not cut into the stone. So just want to make sure that we're okay with the idea of the accessible entrance being here. It's just more about the presentation of that
Right.
entrance. Okay. Just making sure.
Agree. Yes, I like
Yes.
that. Yeah. It's a good solution.
And pay close attention when you get to the rails and stuff about just simple, historic looking rails. I mean, we just looked at that Dan Sherman Hospital. It's like, hopefully the slope's not such that you have to have fall protection, but you
And
just
it
got to
does-
grab.
We're working on that a little bit to see if we can mitigate that.
Okay.
You don't have that much slope anyway, right?
If we can put it behind this location.
That's right.
Well, I think the guidelines say to locate ramps in the back,
To the rear or side,
which
yeah.
is, that's
So-
the back and side.
Just for clarification, it looks like there is a ramp here that leads to like a garage kind of door back here, but also there's one here. So potentially we could just have one instead of both.
Yeah, we ended up, the first one to the right, I guess you'd say, was coming directly off the parking lot for convenience. We added the other one for loading and unloading, and since that can't, if we're gonna do that overhead door, it doesn't function as an accessible entry point. But because the slopes were a little lower, we thought it might make sense. I think it'll make more sense if there's not a railing there.
Well, maybe you can grade some of that out. It only looks like 8 or 10 inches. At least one of them you could grade out, and the other one, Greg will tell you all the horror stories of trying to grade near a floodplain. So have fun with that. If you know what a HEC-RAS model is, it's my favorite thing in the world. Okay. The roof line thing, one side hipped, if you can gable both ends, I think it'll just look more correct. There's instances where you have to do that. This may not be one of them. Go ahead, Mary.
I don't see putting the transom there. It's supposed to read secondary to the house.
I have similar comments too, that it just looks heavy
In the middle,
with the brackets and
Yeah.
the,
no, I don't disagree.
yeah, it's just too overbearing. And then, could you get away with a single door?
I think so. I mean, I think especially with to the
Sidelights
point
and
earlier, the
entrance.
loading entrance on the back.
I mean, it would still be ADA compliant.
Yeah. I think there's a couple levels of simplification that can make that feel lighter and feel a little better.
You've got a canopy on the back that doesn't show in this view,
Right.
but it's a little more petite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it may be that you just continue your slope over the door and use your brackets on the ADA accessibility side, and just because it's not a gable. I think it introduces a level of complication there that you don't necessarily need. You got the 2 different eave heights and all that. It's like, if you just want a cross gable, put a little cross gable on it, but align those eaves or something. But it may be just as simple to do a shed like you got on the back that just comes off the main roof, real
We had a cross
subdued.
gable originally, and it started to feel a little bulky, so. But
Well, yeah, it starts to compete with that front gable because this is not a big house. nothing about it's big, so anything you add on is gonna fight
I-
that.
One of the things, and I said a little something about it with the sidewalk, but when Franklin tomorrow did that design workshop, one of the things that the team observed was that Franklin is not great at screening parking. So I just say that.
It's because your car is a statement around here.
That it matters so much.
Yeah.
I do like the stone base around it to
Yeah.
mimic.
Mary,
It's
you'll
a
notice,
nice connector in materials to the historic home. It's nice.
can you go to page 9 for me? You'll notice we've had to make the driveway a little bit wider so we can conform to the city of Franklin. So we've added 2 parallel parking spaces that are alongside the principal structure, and the perpendicular doesn't start until you're behind the historic structure. So hopefully we're making an improvement on this plan that makes some sense.
And it looks like you've left enough green that there can be a little, some landscape.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you, on page 13, is there a, I'm looking at the roof plan too, there's a dormer on the back of this party barn,
On the right side.
or whatever it is.
Just so you get some daylight. Yeah.
You mean the little blue?
You can see it in the.
Well, that's, you're on 14, go to 13, you'll see it in that color rendering, right there. It's popped up there. What is that? There's no second story, it's just,
No, just daylight.
just chop that baby off.
We did approve the dormer on the rear of the building, so it does nod to what will be there moving forward. And I think, the structure to the left in plan view is a 2-story building, just as a reminder. It's surrounded by multi-story buildings.
Well, bring us some views of that. Because again, I think I said this earlier, the proportion of the windows and stuff matter. When you get these short little eyebrow dormers, they can look very contemporary because they don't have openings and scale that relates to something that, yeah. So if it's done well, I'm like, hey, it looks like a traditional dormer, go for it. But if it looks like a short, squatty dormer with long horizontal windows, I mean, even our zoning talks about verticality and all that. So we just don't have a really good view of it here, so bring more
I have
info.
another question too about the connector between the two, the historical home and the new building. Tell me about the connector. Is it closed in? Is it open?
No, I think that, and I'll be perfectly honest, this was a pretty rough first pass at design to just kind of get feedback on the concept. So we've clearly got work to do, and we know that. The idea of a connector is that it would be probably a little more glass. It would look like something that was kind of infilled. You'll have some windows, it'll read as windows between there with some mullions, but the idea would be for it to be more glass than solid, to feel as light as we can feel between those 2 spaces.
And do we know what percentage of square footage the addition is to the house yet, or?
Yes, so it does exceed what's proposed here exceeds the 50%. We were really looking at, kind of to where we started, how do we kind of take what's there and bring it back? The idea here also is if we go this way, you're not going to have the ability to bring in an accessory structure, or at least it'll be really hard to do because you're going to have to come back and build one in the floodplain. So we did exceed that 50%. We felt like it might be appropriate here where, obviously it's often not, but here it's fully shielded, and then B, again, this, to kind of oversimplify things, this is kind of going to be the shot at what you're going to be able to develop on this site. You've got the tree cover you've got to maintain on the back end, and then you've got floodplain all around. So we did exceed that 50%.
It does not exceed the 35% coverage.
No, I'm sorry. This is the square, I'm sorry, I was going the wrong fact.
Yeah, we're talking about the 50% footprint
that's
rule.
Excuse
How big is the lot? How big is this lot?
0.46 acres.
Okay.
Half acre-ish?
Yeah.
So it's a bigger lot than typical. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I'm sorry, we do not exceed the coverage percentage. the answer I should have given.
The lot coverage, 35, but they're probably over on footprint.
Yes,
Yeah.
we are.
Yeah. We'll bring those numbers.
Yep.
And we have taken into consideration in the past larger lots, for one. And then I think it's at least a talking point that, oh, you're giving up a building that you most likely can't get back in that format. So, okay. Those are, I don't know that makes a difference, but it's a point.
Mr.
Okay.
Chair, one other question too.
Yes, ma'am.
When I'm looking at this drawing that's up there, could you maybe give more consideration to where the two buildings almost meet at that point? A little more relief, like the addition shrink away from the historical home?
You mean
You
kind
see,
of pull it?
you see
two
where we
triangles.
have that one
Yeah.
little
The two ends of the building.
squeeze bottleneck thing? Yeah, like
It depends
a
on
little
where
more
the,
relief.
depends on where the 100-year floodplain line is. I think we're like right within our little box, but okay.
Well, and maybe it shrinks, you know,
Maybe
the
it could
building
come
shrinks.
closer to the retaining wall.
I don't know, is that planned
Or the-
walkway through there, or? It just
No.
looks awfully tight.
Just a little light well of sorts.
Isn't there a basement access?
The basement stairs in there.
Can it slide like a few feet closer to this wall?
I think we're up against the setback on that wall, if I remember correctly.
Just, that looked a little tight in there without seeing more reasons why, but, and that was just from roof, you know, with overhangs and everything, so it might be.
There's that picture of that stair right above that. Emily. That stair will be in that notch. Is that a coal chute next to it or a window?
Do you have so much,
Window.
like, code's gonna make you set back from that well, from your footing for the new building? There might be some,
Me.
I'm not sure.
Underpin that baby. Okay, interesting.
y'all so much.
Well, thank you. Very interesting. Okay. Making sure we covered everything. Yeah. Siding, appropriate size, garage. Yep. Okay, thank y'all. All right, item number 10, discussion of partial demolition and addition and alterations at 251 Second Avenue South, the old ice house. Mr. Pretty's back with different drawings.
Different stuff. I was gonna change shirts, but I won't change.
Okay. Okay, if you want to give us, we've seen this a couple times, so if you want to tell us what is new, that would help us expedite things, so.
Absolutely. So we really appreciated comments we had last time through DRC a few months ago. And to quickly roll through what we did, we removed the balconies off the rear, both to preserve some of the privacy on the adjacent properties and also architecturally to create something that felt a little bit more appropriate to what needs to happen on the site. So the balconies were removed. We really, I think, added just some depth to the design of the new brick addition piece. We, as you can see, this illustrates, I think, pretty well we took the cues from the old factory building on the adjacent site there, really used that as inspiration. Didn't want to do anything overwhelming for the existing site, but just some detailing to articulate the cornice, some arches on the windows, a little bit of relief, some herringbone infill, brick pattern between the windows. So again, just some things to provide some visual depth to that. We had two both of those forms had been gables. We removed the one to the right, so we just have that gable to the left again, letting that addition not feel quite so heavy and overwhelming. We had the elevator shaft that was in a little bit of a little more visually prominent position. We've moved that elevator shaft. It's now only visible from the rear of the building, obviously shielded from Margin Street behind the gable roof of the old chicken plant. And then we looked a lot at openings, both along Margin and then along the rear of the building. So since we're on this elevation, I'll just stay here. On the rear of the building, we realigned some things. We frankly had a lot going on that elevation. I think we cleaned up what's going on the green portion of that, the existing piece. We highlighted really 3 new openings. We actually used the size, the existing opening for that larger, we'll call it a faux loading door type of piece. We're keeping the opening as is, just putting something in to provide some windows to bring a little light into the units inside. Have a new window on top of that, and then another new window to the left. So again, just tried to both clean up visually what was going on there and reduce the number of openings. And that same approach along South Margin, we've only got 3 new openings there, and those are along really next page, I believe. There we go. So again, just maintaining that rhythm. You've got the existing kind of large warehouse windows, we'll call them, to the left, and then continuing that rhythm to allow us to do the adaptive reuse of this as a boutique hotel to bring some light into those rooms. That's really the only place we added openings. There is a potential of adding, based on a new layout we're looking at, of adding a new opening in the old brick ice house piece that would match the small opening to the right. We would essentially repeat that proportionally to the right. That's a relatively new development, but again, the approach being just a lighter touch, fewer new openings, maintaining what's there. I think that covers everything. The last piece I'll say, one of the comments was about signage. Signage is always tough. We've got to, we want to show it to kind of liven up the renderings a little bit, but anything we're showing here is conceptual. We understand we'll come back with a full signage package once we have a little better idea what that is. That's a little bit down the line. I will say we had the Franklin Ice Company. That's a new piece we proposed, and that was really inspired from this photograph where we've really got precedent for having something there previously and thought as a way, to bring kind of that faded lettering back, again, just celebrating the history of the site. So those are the changes.
Okay. Elizabeth.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So the request still entails partial demolition of a section of the building and sections of roofing and adding, that have been added over time, and having a 2-story addition on the rear of the building and alterations to the historic building. Changes based on feedback have been incorporated into the plans, as mentioned by Brandon. The proposed addition appears to remain subordinate in height and scale to the remainder of the historic building on the site. Feedback about the proposed brick detailing on the 2-story addition would be appreciated, as the guidelines recommend to use details and ornamentation that are similar in character and proportion, but less elaborate than those on the historic building, which appears very simple in detailing. Additional feedback about the proposed windows would be appreciated. Alterations to the building include adding 3 new openings along South Margin Street and on the rear of the building. The guidelines recommend against adding new openings along highly visible facades. Feedback on this would be appreciated. Additionally, changes have been made to the new rooftop feature, where sections of the roofing are proposed to be removed. New openings are proposed to the section of the 2-story chicken processing plant part of the site on the left elevation that will be visible. On the rooftop, new chimneys are proposed in an undulating pattern. Feedback about whether or not chimneys are appropriate to the building and site would be appreciated, as the guidelines recommend or considered appropriate to design chimneys to be compatible in materials and detailing, but simpler and subordinate in massing and height to historic chimneys. The proposed chimneys appear simple in detailing, and additional perspectives may be needed to understand the visibility of this element. It is now proposed to replace the non-historic windows on the ice house with new multi-light windows. Additional information about the window materials and profiles are needed for consideration and feedback from the commissioners would be appreciated about the proposed window pattern for the sections of the historic building and the proposed pattern on the addition as well. The guidelines recommend to use window patterns and historic profiles and dimensions that match the light pattern of windows on the historic building, which there are very few examples left on the building. Windows should have distinct meeting rails and have the appearance of being operable. And the guidelines for additions to historic buildings, guidelines for historic buildings recommend for late 19th century buildings 4/4, 2/2, or 1/1. And for early 20th century designs, 1/1 sashes would be installed. And so the site features a unique combination of ages and buildings added over time, and has a unique utilitarian history, so feedback about the proposed window design profiles would be appreciated. And so we commend the applicant for noting the preservation of materials where possible and additional information in comparison of the proposed replacement materials would be needed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right. Somebody want to start us? Kathy?
I think it's looking really fantastic. And I'm happy for the name, the Ice House, not Chicken Shack.
Troy's idea.
Chicken Shack.
I wanted Chicken Shack. Troy wanted Ice House.
Not a happy place for the chickens to go, but anyway. Something that stuck out with what staff was talking about was identifying the new building. The brickwork is beautiful, but it almost looks like the new portion appears to be the historical portion. So it's kind of a play on the simplicity of the historical brick building. How do we tone this down, but still give it detailing so that it reads well? It reads beautifully. But if I knew nothing about this project, I would say that's the historical building, the one on the top. So removing the balconies was awesome, because it does not look like Broadway where everybody's hanging out off of the end. It just really gave it a lot more character and presence. But it is reading more like it is the star of the show. And I don't know if the stone headers change, if it less detailing in the brick, maybe more of a simplistic, but don't forget about that brick detailing, because it's what makes this elevation. It's very handsome, but it is reading as super significant. And I thought that was really a good point that staff brought out. That struck me the most. This is a super challenging site, and I think you've dealt with the massing really well. Oops, what was I going to say too? Oh, and I did like the nod on the green building. If you go to sheet A200, the green building, the old green building and the new green building, and you kind of gave the same nod to that freight door thing, and I like that. I thought that's clever to grab those little things like that. That helps tell the story to it and adds that little factor of that being historical as well. So I'll stop right there. But I think it's looking super great.
Okay, thank you. Anybody on this side?
I agree with
Angela?
everything Kathy just said. Yes, for sure.
Okay. Bob?
I agree with both of them. And also, I like how you removed those balconies. You put some private patios, but that's very indented into the building.
Yeah, that would be set back really on the other side of the old brick house.
Right, like 50 feet.
Yeah.
Okay. Mary?
I agree with what Kathy said also.
Okay. Yeah, I think that detailing's just, it's beautiful, but it's probably a little much. These are such like utility buildings that they just weren't ornamented at all. So you're always going to kind of be fighting the idea that, you know, any detailing at all is going to be more than what the previous. You might try simplifying that cornice, the parapet, just a little. I think it probably wants some corbelling, but maybe not like dental corbelling. Maybe it's just some steps out in the rows of brick, just a simpler, but it still has a cap. Yeah. Is it all going to be the same brick?
Yes.
Okay, because there's a little color differentiation in the herringbone. I think if you just went with the same bond there and got rid of the herringbone, it just simplifies it. I think if you kept the limestone sills but went to a brick header, it just starts to just tone down just a little bit in its sophistication to where it doesn't all of a sudden. I think no matter what you build, it's going to be more sophisticated than a place they slaughter chickens. I mean, that's just is what it is.
And don't you think that the detailing actually differentiates
Yeah.
the
yeah.
original building?
That's right.
It
So you
sets
want
it apart.
some, but just not maybe so sophisticated that it feels foreign to the rest of it.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's like you still have corrugated metal and just, it's simple, nice materials. This water table that you've got at the windowsills, that could be done a bunch of different ways. I keep wanting to follow, especially these parapet ends, follow that pilaster all the way to the ground. So you may want to grab those pilasters at the corners in between these pairs of windows and go ahead and draw them through just so that it looks like it's got legs. But I like that it has a base, but it's just those little things start to make it feel like just a little more simple. I mean, you want it to be a sophisticated hotel, but we don't want it to get too foreign. But I agree with everybody. It looks a lot better. This rooftop chimney thing, I guess if you can swing it with codes, I don't really have a problem with it because I don't think they'll be that visible. I have lots of questions about how many of them are there? 6? 1, 2, 3.
No, those are
They're just gas.
fully ornamental, yeah.
Okay. Gas fireplaces. Okay. And then I think somewhere there were like some plants growing up there, and I don't know that we've ever allowed plants anywhere on roofs in in Franklin. We've kind of been adverse
We
to it.
had them, and then we quickly stopped it after seeing the reality.
Yeah. So, and that's not to say you don't have like potted plants and things. It's just if there's permanent planters and built-in things that grow, like we've told people no to trees and all kinds of
Yeah.
stuff on roofs.
No, I think anything there would be potted, something small, gives us flexibility on there.
Okay.
I don't think the idea is to have large planters.
Okay. The windows, Elizabeth, did you say some of the windows in the ice house were original? The actual ice house building, those are all been replaced?
Not on the ice house portion.
Okay.
I think the only remaining ones might be on the chicken processing
Okay.
part.
On that front margin, some of those are original. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, just to not leave those porches yet, I think the lighting those are going to cause is going to change the whole character of that neighborhood. So. I
We'll
don't
get to
know-
review the lighting on those porches.
Oh, this says, along Second Avenue. And to me, really need to think that one over.
It may be that we're just thinking like a simple sconce, like a residential sconce, like one per
But you're
porch
going
or
to have
something.
light coming out those windows too.
Well, I mean, I have
Yeah,
lights coming
so-
out my windows at my house too.
Yeah, but you're not, that's not
Yeah.
fair. You're on an acre and a half lot.
Well,
And this is,
but this
feet.
neighbor has lights.
this is,
The neighbor that lives right next door
Not
has their
that-
lights on.
well, none of them are that high, so.
Well,
I-
that's
I'm
true. It
just
is a little
saying,
higher. That's true.
If you're trying to protect the downtown historic district.
It's 50 feet back that way too.
Okay.
Actually, a
well,
little bit more than 50 feet. I
Okay.
think it's a really good point and something to
Well, look,
consider. I think
just
you're right. I think it's a
look.
simple sconce, and any other supplemental lighting is going to be down lighting, on that patio area. But yeah, I
Yeah, we'll want to
think
look at that.
Yeah.
I don't have lots of concerns about something being nuclear from inside and shining out.
Well, what I meant, it's going to shine out already. And then you're going to have lighting. And then you're up higher than anybody. So all of that together, if you're trying to keep the historic district looking like a historic district,
Yeah.
that needs some thought.
Yes.
And I think too, while I think we've got a little bit of work to do on the brick pieces that are set back that are going to hold those fireplaces, those are going to actually provide a little bit of screening from that light as well. So I think we'll be thoughtful in how we articulate those so that they do block some of that light. But they're not going to be, they'll be set back enough, you're not going to see them walking down Second Avenue either.
What's everyone's thoughts on new holes, new windows in the Margin Street elevation? I think they're circled in blue there.
To me, that is kind of capturing the character of what was there, so I don't really have a problem.
I agree with that,
With that.
what Mary just said.
I think it looks odd that there's nothing there now.
Yeah,
That there's
it
nothing
does.
Yeah, there's nothing there
Yeah.
now. It's just
And we're
metal.
Yeah,
We're kind of curious to see if there were windows at some point, once
Mm-hmm.
we do some demo. But, yeah.
Well, in I think I've said this about like the factory and some of these other places that were again utilitarian. They were factories. They were working buildings.
Yeah.
They changed them as they needed to change them to function. I mean, it was a thing they would
That's
do.
right.
Next year, they'd poke a hole for a steamer or something here or there. You just did what you needed to do because you had a job to do. It wasn't about the aesthetics necessarily. So, you know, the opposite side of that argument is there's certain houses that are particular styles and have symmetry and balance, and you can't just go poking holes in those because it's a different thing, right? So,
well, go back, let's look at Lily Mills a second, the building. So, I mean, it's playing off of a lot of
Yeah.
that.
yeah, I don't think it's as ornamented at the top. Again, this is an
Yes,
etching.
I agree.
It's an etching, but it does have enough that those frames are completed over the top.
Yeah.
I think that's important in some brick detailing there.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the addition is beautiful.
Yeah.
I like it.
But it does, to your point, do you see their detailing is just recess, a whole,
Whole bay.
yeah, vertical
Yep,
piece.
whole bay. And the legs
which
go to the ground.
Might be a way to get it some texture.
Yeah.
I think what I'm hearing is last time our detailing was at about a 3. We've now brought it to at about an 8.5. And we're going to
That's
bring
right.
it down to about a 6.
You're getting a good grade.
Well,
Well,
Yes.
and I don't know if this works with your floor plan or not, but look at page 6, the upper elevation there. Go down to the next one. Sorry, I was scrolled down a little bit. Right there. It's a 200. So on the right side of the center mass and the right, the windows are spaced further apart. And that is a little more historic feeling kind of ratio to solid and void. Then you start this triple thing. The triple thing, what it's going to beget are these little skinny ribs of brick in between. If it worked with your floor planning to change those out to pairs as well, could help just that solid to void ratio. The windows don't seem, because having ribbons of windows like that is a modern construct, especially in a brick warehouse looking building. Even if you look at Lily Mills, one window per portal.
But
This
it
is
does give
3.
that verticality that the
That's right.
Lily Mill does. And I noticed that when we were looking at this slide before, but why is the rhythm broken up? We've got the 3 bays of the 3 and then the 2.
It's a function of the floor
It's just
plan.
on the
It's-
inside.
Yeah.
The floor plan.
But it looks in real life when you get to these brick mullions that are 8 inches wide, it's a brick thick between windows, and it looks bizarre.
Would it feel better if the left side mimic bookends the right side where it's just the pair?
Yeah.
I do
I think-
like the 3s. I don't know it's got a nice.
It's odd
nod
numbers.
back to-
It is.
No,
Like the
yeah.
Parthenon, odd, because
You and I likes the odd numbers.
odds have a center,
Yeah.
evens don't have a center.
Right.
But it still
yeah.
tells the story. Yeah, I don't know. You kind of got a little historical flavor going on with this, the way it is, but it is new. But maybe if you, to Tyler's point, just reduce that and then the centerpiece becomes the
Yeah.
verticality
Yeah, I think we
using your
can,
brick.
Yeah.
Scroll up to the drawing right above that and look at the pairs on the back. Different, right?
Mhm.
She has a little more brick. It's not a ton more brick, but
Yeah.
it's plausible, and you still have the frames. And those could even be refined to where there's leg, it goes over two windows and then down. So there's ways to, but I
that
think
way
where
you
you're
can
headed,
tie
it's
that
nice.
elevation with this elevation.
That's
better.
right. Yeah.
say that again, I'm sorry.
This elevation, if you change the other one we were talking about to just the pair bookending it,
To that.
it relates to this elevation a lot better. And then, whatever the use is on the inside, you only have to deal with it on the left side.
Yeah.
You're not really you're not giving up whatever you'd have to give up to do that. But, hey, less window order.
We're
But I
VE and
think
Troy.
it will enhance the appeal of the brick.
Yeah.
Without making it be
Yeah.
the magnificent.
No, the point is well
Historical
taken. When you've got the glass together, you've really got to watch that with, to your
Yeah.
point, Tyler. I
If you're
think we
gonna
were-
if you're gonna mull them together like that, just
Well, I
I
think
mean
we,
that mull probably just needs to be a piece
Yeah.
of wood, and you've got it's just detailed
Yeah.
differently. The little fins of brick
Yeah.
are not a thing.
And I don't think it needs to be detailed, but if you can just show it in three-dimensional in the context of the neighborhood,
Mhm.
that would be helpful.
Yeah.
Doesn't need detailed. Just for massing and scale.
Anything else, anybody?
No?
Back to
Very
those
good. Go ahead.
balconies
That's great.
too. You know the little balcony areas? How big is each person gonna get on the balcony? Like, how big are each of the balconies?
Oh, the width of those. Yeah, off the top of my head, it's.
Two of these.
I don't know that Tyler's too far off.
She's
That's
from New
probably-
Orleans.
Yeah.
I just had to say.
I've got 10 feet, give or take, in my head, but that may not be right. It may be 11 or 12. I can't remember.
Okay.
12? Okay.
They are, to me, just very wonky compared to everything else. And I'd like to see the impact of them in the context
Yeah.
of the neighborhood.
Do we have a 3D rendering of that corner looking that way from
Is there
basically
one
the
on the
corner?
last page? I can't remember if, you kind of see it, the last page, page 10 kind of has it.
Oh,
there.
that's looking kind of bird's eye though.
Yeah.
I'd love
it's
to see
not
it from.
yeah.
I'd love to see it from the intersection of Margin
Oh, yeah.
and just show us because
Oh,
if you
won't-
can't see them, then
if
you
you're
can't see
looking
them.
at Margin in a second, you won't see him. I don't think you're going to see him.
You're on the
I
other
think,
side.
I think the only place you're
We
going
saw
to
it from
maybe,
the street level.
yeah.
It's
that
down, if you
entry
lower
into the
that
park.
camera down, you'd maybe see a couple. Okay.
I
This-
think it's a really handsome feature for a boutique hotel to have that. I can see how it would be the room to get, the space to be on in the evening. But it's small enough that it can't be party on the roof,
Right.
kind of a thing. And I think you've accomplished that.
Take you to
with the
Nashville and show you
smallness.
the opposite. Have you seen these buses? Tractors.
Yeah, no,
I think the smallness of it is to your favor.
yeah. No, the point is very well taken, and I think the size of those works against it. And, I mean, I'll be honest, there's another level of articulation and detailing that needs to happen with those. They're not quite there.
Just, please don't, you detail that wonderfully. Don't have to do it, but just do it to where you kind of see down the street.
Absolutely.
I like that.
One other quick question too, any rooftop mechanical, what have I got going on? How are we hiding that?
With screen walls. We'll have,
Okay.
and that's where we are in design. We don't
It's
know
elevator.
exactly where that's going to be. I would anticipate some of that being around that elevator. We may even have a lower screen wall between the elevator piece and the edge. We're certainly going to do everything we can do to move it out of the way. Making that roof flat gives us some place to put it, and it's on the back of the building, so it will not be, certainly will not be visible from Margin or Second.
That's always the beast.
Yeah.
Yes.
Everybody good?
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank
Exciting.
you all very much. Thank you.
All right. Item number 11, discussion of partial demolition and an addition on a principal structure and new construction accessory structures at 109 Everbright Avenue. Asher Paxton.
Good evening.
Are you Asher?
That's me.
Okay. All right.
Should've
If you
brought
want.
y'all dinner.
Yeah.
It's getting late.
All right. Go ahead. If you want to give us just a brief overview.
Indeed. Well, good evening. Thank you for your time and again for the late evening. I'm here with the property owner, Hunter Daniel. His wife Karma owned this home on 109 Everbright. And my partner and builder, Caleb Spearing with Syndicate Design and Construction. So we are proposing an addition to Mr. Daniel's home. And you'll see in the site plan a little bit of the before and after for this proposed site. It is a master suite, primary suite addition, and then rear into the rear of the property, along with an accessory garage and space that's attached to it, and an accessory kind of shed structure, and then maybe a potential future pool that they will locate somewhere in the rear yard as well. This is a demolition plan, so we are proposing to remove the kind of deteriorating and dilapidated primary wing of the house on the kind of plan left here. And if you'll jump to the next one, you'll see the proposed addition to the house actually pulls in the footprint just a little bit and then takes a liberty of going into the rear yard that won't be seen from the street. Tries to maintain the character from the front and also captures some of the space that we have in the rear yard because it actually goes pretty deep into the lot, so that they're able to achieve their kind of hopes for the inside of the house program layout between the primary bedroom, the kind of kitchen that tucks in, and then the accessory uses that attach as well. This is a drawing that shows the garage structure and the kind of lounge space that's attached, and the kind of future pool bathhouse that goes there as well. We have some planning for, maybe string lights and things that will connect these two structures just to make kind of a nice backyard, but that's not quite for today's conversation. And then also a kind of shed structure that will live in the rear yard as well. This is just a roof plan that kind of shows the addition piece. Light gray is existing. Addition will be on the left side and the center as well, along with two proposed skylights on the rear, not seen from the street, along with some skylights on the proposed porch covering that will happen, subservient to the front side of the house as well. You'll see the front elevation on the top. So the house historic portion is on the kind of right side, and then the addition we're proposing is on the left. Honors the same kind of character, same architectural style. We have the same kind of brick detailing happening. There's a couple of recesses in the brick every, I think, third course, and then at the kind of base of the brick, there's this kind of two-course extrusion, maybe by an inch or so. Some horizontal lap siding that pulls in some of the similar characteristics of the other sides of the house, along with a frieze board that matches and kind of pulls across as well. And the windows, we don't have to go into it quite yet, but Pella traditional windows that, I think Pella Reserve traditional windows that were used in a previous edition that the owner has done would match the same sort of mullion styles. I think it's just like a single horizontal stripe at each window piece. And then the rear of the home is on the bottom, just kind of starting to show that architectural character. It's a very mid-century modern home, which is a little interesting to be kind of categorized under historic, but we're trying to pull some of those same pieces as well into this and how we show the kind of porches at the rear. This just shows the side. The top image is the existing, existing piece, and you can kind of see into the distance what's happening. A little hard to tell there on the right side. You're kind of seeing the master porch way in the distance, but this is the side that shows kind of the same sort of architectural elements, the kind of brick banding, the frieze board, and the horizontal siding as well. And this addition was done probably 5 years ago or so, and matches the same character into the rear yard as well. And then we're doing this basically trying to honor that same sort of historical character on the flip side, which is that elevation B on the bottom. And then this is just a series of elevations of the accessory structures, the top floor of the garage. We're not trying to we're trying to make that kind of a secondary-like structure from the historical standards. So that brick detailing kind of starts to remove away, but we still have the same architectural elements, brick and frieze board and horizontal, but less of the brick detailing to try and keep it secondary to the structure. And yeah, this is just a square footage diagram. We can talk about it as we get into this. And is that the last sheet? Yeah. Yeah, I can leave it at that. This is a previously approved design that the owners wanted to show for a lot of context here. They were awarded a COA for this design, which we think is actually a little bit more, a little bit larger. And so, especially on the front-facing street characters. So we're trying to pare that back from even what was approved before and allow for something that we would say is tasteful.
Okay, let's hear from staff, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the property located at 109 Everbright Avenue is located in the Everbright Avenue Historic District. The building was constructed circa 1955 according to the Williamson County Property Assessor data. So that means it is approximately 71 years in age and may be considered historic in age by federal standards. The Design Review Committee and Historic Zoning Commission previously reviewed several alterations, additions, and partial demolition in 2016, which were partially completed. The proposal for review today is the construction of a minor accessory structure, a larger accessory structure, partial demolition, and an addition to the principal building. So, we'll start off small and work our way up. For the minor accessory structure, let's see, get our elevations. Okay, here we go. Minor accessory structures are permitted to have a maximum footprint of 200 square feet. The footprint of the structure is inclusive of everything under roof. This means covered porches, stoops, and breezeways. The measurements of the proposed structure will need to be updated to include the covered porch. The use of the transom window on the elevation that will face the interior of the lot is unique and does not appear to relate to any transoms that are seen on the historic building. Material specifications for the exterior of the structure are needed to provide recommendations from the guidelines. For the larger accessory structure, known as an accessory dwelling, they are permitted to not exceed 50% of the principal building footprint. The measurements of the covered porches will need to be provided to make sure the overall structure meets this requirement. The placement of the structure appears appropriate on the lot. The building form and height appear to be compatible to the historic principal building. The use of brick for the structure will match in material to the principal building. We'd like to seek feedback from the DRC if the material should match other material that is seen on the historic building or be the same painted brick. For the principal building, partial demolition and addition, let me flip to that. We'll put it on this one. So the left front-facing portion of the historic principal building is proposed to be demolished and replaced with a new addition. The guidelines highly discourage demolition unless there are extraordinary circumstances so as to maintain the integrity and sense of place associated with Franklin's historic districts. Demolition may only be approved if the Historic Zoning Commission deems one of the more following conditions met. If a building has lost its architectural and historic integrity, and its removal will not adversely affect the historic district's character. If the denial of the demolition will result in an unreasonable economic hardship on the applicant as determined by the Historic Zoning Commission. And if the structural instability or deterioration of a property is demonstrated through a report by a structural engineer or architect with demonstrated experience working with historic structures. So, in 2016, portions of the front elevation were proposed to be demolished and new additions were approved to infill areas around the demolition. What is proposed today is a complete demolition of 516 square feet. Some information has been included within the application showing cosmetic deterioration of the portion of the building that is proposed to be demolished. A cost estimate analysis has been provided, but it is unknown who provided the estimates. If the historic footprint is removed from the building and wholesale demolished, then the historic footprint would decrease by 516 square feet, and an addition would not be recommended by the guidelines. However, if the square footage was kept and an additional 512 square feet could be added to the building, it could align with the guidelines recommendation of an addition being 50% of the historic footprint. When calculating the footprint of any addition, the footprint of the building is inclusive of everything under roof, which includes the covered porches, stoops, breezeways, etc. For the alterations to the building, there are proposed chimneys, skylights, and a pool, and all appear to be appropriately placed per the guidelines. There are several project considerations that we will provide to the applicant within the DRC recap. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Trying to think of where to start on this one. There's a lot. Let's talk about the main house first. Any feedback on that from y'all, Kathy?
I'll give a go at it. The portion that you're asking for demolition, do we have a picture or any of that information in this packet?
We do. If you go to, the very final page of this has a elevation. Last one, bottom right here. This diagram here shows a couple of the other homes just on that same street, and you can see here the 109 Everbright property here.
The portion for demolition is right behind the basketball goal?
That's correct.
Okay. There we go.
That's a good view.
Oh, I see like the little breezeway connector.
Main house is on a foundation that is on slab on grade. We'll slope that corridor leading to the master.
Okay. And so, I guess the reason for demolition is just to make the new addition work.
Not quite.
For the
So
most part.
There, I provided the cost estimate in here. There are significant structural, and then we provided a report here also from Asher and myself, who are very experienced and have a lot of track record with historic builds. And it's going to cost Mr. Daniels about 10% more to repair the structural, and it's not at the same level as the house, and so there's significant termite rot, water intrusion, and our goal is to make sure that this can stand for a long time in the future, as the Daniels want to be here for forever. This is their forever home, and we want to provide a product that can make that happen.
yeah, any addition that we are hoping to have on this property, we would want to bring to the same level, the same floor plan level as we extend into the rear. And even if we were to propose something where the piece that's there stays, we would have so many floor level changes that an addition to the rear would be would not meet the things that the Daniels are hoping to be able to add onto their home. And our hope and suggestion is, and recommendation is to bring those all up to the same level and add a crawl space so that the home can all be contiguous into the rear and then extend into the rear where you won't see it from the street, and align with the historical guidelines there as well.
What else, Kathy?
It's a hard pill to swallow for demolition on this, but there is criteria that you would need to meet to move forward on that. It does hurt you to remove it because then your footprint is smaller, which makes your percentage to build new smaller. And I don't think you meet that requirement. Was that, we're getting to that. Your
Right.
addition is too large once you remove this portion you want to demo. So that's something else to consider too. When I look at the floor plan and the new, just from the front elevation, part of the beauty of this style of home is where that addition, where the kitchen sink meets the new addition meets the historical, there's wraparound windows, and you've brought the new addition and you've covered up that corner window effect. That is so typical to this style of home, you've lost it by sticking that addition right there up against it. If you look at the right side of the historical property, you do have those corner windows that frame each other, and so you've lost it on the bookend left side where the addition goes. Whoop, pass it up. So right off there, my front elevation has been compromised from a design Standpoint, affecting the historical aspect of it as well too, but great floor plan. I'll let someone else talk. I mean, it's a lot to take in and digest, but I think the demolition's gonna be the hardest thing to get over unless you prove, meet the requirements that you need to submit for demolition.
To clarify, if we meet the criteria for demolition for the 3 points.
We still have to look at it.
Yeah.
No. Does the square footage reduction still come into play? If the
Yeah,
demolition's approved for one of those 3 criteria?
Yeah, the guidelines.
You still get the reduction?
Yes.
So it's a disadvantage to us to do the demo
Correct.
regardless.
You're reducing your
From a square
overall
footage.
footprint. So you can't build more than what that footprint would allow with the demolition.
Right.
It didn't come up last time.
We're in new guidelines now, so.
Oh, you're talking about way back in 16?
In 2016, I did look at the staff report, and staff did recommend denial of the demolition. The commission did vote to approve it. Just wanted to
Okay.
provide that.
Okay. What about you, Mary? Anything?
I agree that covering the corner window is not something that would meet our guidelines. And I would give some grace on the footprint because it's a large lot. I don't know how much is the addition compared to the historic home
Yeah, that would be on the last sheet here.
on the last sheet? Okay.
Can show that.
Well, part of
is
it,
a huge
yeah, part
lot.
of it, what exaggerates it too, is there's lots of covered porch. And
Right.
it counts in the number.
Right.
And so that's,
So the covering is what counts.
that's right.
Yeah.
So if it's trellis but not full cover, does that count as covered?
It's anything under roof, and so
Yeah.
those numbers were not included with, some were, but not in measurements so that we could compute. They were already provided, and we just like to double check, just to make sure. And anyway, so.
We won't tell you why we need to do that. Yeah, I think we have reviewed some trellises, and those didn't count against footprint at the time. It's open, it's not under roof. So there's some.
ways, there's,
But we would you guys would consider offering grace considering the substantial size of the lot.
I agree.
Yeah, yes.
Offering some grace on that. And if it turns out that the part you're wanting to demolish is just subpar construction, then that might be the grace I would give to it. But even, I don't know, even with that, you may be needing to come down some.
Yeah, I
But-
think I hear the comment about the windows. I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think we could adjust the floor plan.
I think you
I can
can
see some
too.
ways where that could be incorporated to maintain that mid-century modern corner that would help this a lot.
Yeah.
And I think even could help a little bit just to step it so that we can see that
Yes.
it's a different front character as well.
Well said, yeah,
Yeah,
that's
I
a
think-
good point for respecting your addition to the historical home, so,
Yeah.
perfect.
Do you have anything else, Mary?
I taking a hard look at the other two outbuildings.
We'll get to those in a minute.
Okay, well,
Otherwise, I'm going to
okay,
get confused.
I was gonna say.
If I get confused,
That's
we're
gonna
all,
affect the
Too
mass
late.
we're in
of-
bad shape.
That's gonna affect the mass
It
on
is,
the
it
house,
is.
but
Yep.
I'll just say that.
Anything else main house over here? If you haven't already heard?
No, I
Okay.
just think, I'll just make a comment, I think your lot is your best friend with the size of it.
Yeah.
That's why I bought it. It was a very nice.
I do have something else about the main.
Okay, Kathy, go ahead.
And it's a warm fuzzy good thing.
We like those.
It's the elevation of the addition, well, and the addition where I've got the butterfly wing roof effect. Thank you. It's stunning. What I would say when you come back next time with the drawings, kill the shadow lines. Are
Can
you in
you-
AutoCAD, whatever program you're running? Sometimes the shadow lines really trick your eye.
Okay. Can you scroll to that?
The A2s, elevations.
Most of the elevations.
Front elevation.
They're, yeah, they
Yeah.
really kind of like, what's going on?
Okay.
So, it
Understood.
hurts more than helps.
Okay.
But, I love that roof line, and I love that it is, when we were talking about massing as we look at the back of it all, it's not all one parallel front, they stagger.
Yeah.
So that's to your advantage for massing and weight and all of that, but it's a lovely design. Thank you for the butterfly roof.
Yes, ma'am.
Just so that we get clear feedback for the applicants, as shown on page 10, I believe, of the packet with the areas proposed, the addition shown is about 81% of the existing residence that is to remain, and that's inclusive of the addition that was done in 2019. So that doesn't count for that already eating away, so that exceeds 81%. It's kind of difficult to get all the numbers under this, so just for your consideration, that is 81%, at the minimum, 81% shown. It
Okay.
exceeds that.
Okay. Yeah, and our rule's 50, so closer you can get to 50. And like I said, and we've said it tonight on other lots, on large lots, we have been considerate of that. And we like to see, as we get to these outbuildings, there's a number that's 35% lot coverage. So if you come in and say, look, yes, we're asking for more on the house, but we're only at 12% lot coverage, that plays in your favor because you're not pushing up against the 35 and asking for this. And
We're
'cause if
under
we-
35, but
Could
Yeah.
you jump to the site plan real quick? Just to speak a little bit to the percentage covered. We are we are like right there and we're under it in a good way. So all of the things that we're proposing currently math out to, if you zoom just a little more, 34.85%. So, and we would be pulling that back with the front facade, pulling back anyway, so that would maybe go down to 34%. But if all of the items, when they're calculated together, that's actually that's impervious surface, so maybe.
Yeah, that's pool deck. I mean, yeah, that's,
Driveways and sidewalks as well included in that.
yeah.
But what
So it's
would be your
everything.
friend is how much of it is construction
Okay. Something that I.
for lot coverage.
So it's just
Don't count the driveway.
Under roof.
Under
Okay,
roof.
so we're way under the 35% then.
Yeah. Okay.
I think something else that maybe just for consideration, so the homes that are to the left, when you're facing this home, there's 3 of them that are kind of bungalow style, 2-story homes. They're able to capture a lot of square footage because they're 2-story homes. The home to the right is also that kind of bungalow craftsman style as well. And this one kind of has gotten looped into this because of that. And so we're fighting with the ability to add square footage and hoping that most of it can be done in the rear where you don't see it from the street at all. And so although we are way over the 50%, that's really the only way for the Daniels to be able to add on to this house because they have no roof to hide much. But we're hiding all of it in the rear with roofs that are lower than I think the 16-foot or so.
That's what I was going to say, that your house is peculiar on the block because you've got the 3 houses to your left they're big houses too. And they're big lots too, and they're big houses. Some of them have had additions that made them even bigger out the back. I think the one on your right is pretty modest. It's still a good sized house, but it's not been added on to and expanded and have all the things in the backyard. So there's that in my mind. I'm like, okay, you're already an oddball out on the block face, and then I think you're considered. I mean, you're in a historic district, regardless, but you're, 2 years into being considered historic. It's like, so I think this house is a little different, and I would see it differently than the others. And then across the street is not in the historic district, but there's the Williamson County Theater and pickleball courts, and it's like, I mean, so I think because it's a big lot, because it's an oddball, I think the features that Kathy talked about, there are some unique things here. We're getting to a point where if we don't hold on to some of these mid-century things, then they're just going to be gone.
Yeah.
And I think they're an important archetype. If we had the same mentality about 1930s bungalows, we'd be in trouble.
They're probably more rare, honestly, in
yeah.
this
So,
town.
in this thing on the left side of the house, I keep thinking it had to be a carport or something.
That's what I think too. It used to be a covered porch at one point.
Because why would it be on a slab? It had to be done differently. So, I'm flexible in my mind because of those reasons. This is different. If this were one house over, they would have stopped the district before it got to this house. So I'm like, okay,
Well, maybe not. I was working on
there's a
that.
big old parking lot beyond that.
Maybe they didn't.
Well, yeah, but when it went in, I mean, it's been a few years, and this wasn't even, this was like 55 years old then. So it's just different. So I see it as a little different, but the square footage thing is a concern. It's a lot to add on. So if y'all can take a look at it and draw, I mean, we don't comment on people's floor plans, but I'll tell you, everything's generous, right? So it's like if you can cull that back, it's just going to get your numbers better, and you have a better chance of getting it approved because it falls closer to the guidelines. You come in, most people who are making the argument, we have a big lot, it's like we're 55% or getting close to 60. I don't know that we've heard 80 yet.
No, we haven't.
We have not. And those people were doing 80 or we're doing like 55 or 60, and all their outbuildings and things were conforming and so just toe that line for us. It helps us with that. The demolition of this porch, carport, bathroom, I don't know. It's too peculiar shape to be original. It just wouldn't have been. It just wouldn't have been done that way.
When you
So
look at the Sanborn maps I think you guys pulled, back in 1938, it was not on there. So at some point between then and I think.
That house ain't from 1938.
The house isn't from 1938.
No.
It was definitely added on, is my point.
Yeah. What? How old is that? 1950.
This is 1950.
Okay.
The Sanborn map before that, I think, does not have it on there. So somewhere in there, they added it on.
Yeah. Some
And it's
weird.
definitely.
It's an anomaly. So. all
I
right.
agree.
Okay, let's talk about outbuildings. Let's do the garage. Any feedback on the garage? So remind me, staff, garage is allowed to be 50% of the footprint of the what?
Of the entire building.
The whole thing?
Mhm.
The whole, whatever we approve?
Correct.
Okay. Well, we've given other people this cautionary tale. If we give you extra, don't use the bonus points for adding on to this. That would be double dipping. Does that make sense?
Sure. So our math today, I think, is 2,600 square feet under roof today. And so this accessory structure is 1,300 square feet.
Okay.
So it's at 50%.
Okay. Yeah, and that would be fair. Don't use the overage in this calc. That's not fair. That's the only thing. Anybody have any feedback? I mean, it looked like, aesthetically speaking and massing, it just goes with the house. It's kind of
Yeah.
low slope roof and materials that, if you want to dumb down the materials, a lot of outbuildings were not the same kind of long looking in terms of materials as the main house. So if it were all siding, a lot of outbuildings that on stone cottages were siding because it was an outbuilding and they just weren't. Yeah. So I don't know. You can mix it up.
Use the coming down the alley for reference if you want to look at
Yeah.
those.
And that's the different thing here too is the odd occasion we have an alley. Yeah.
It does.
Which is great for you. I
So
mean,
these are some examples of others
There's a
down
new
the
build
street.
at the corner of Columbia in the alley, and they have a nice two-door garage behind that primary residence.
I think yours just has a lower slope roof, but it's,
This is behind, I guess that would be 105, Everbright, the top two on the left.
Yep. Okay.
Right there along the alley.
Okay.
And then there's a construction on one of the houses behind Battle, and a nice two-story addition.
Actually, as we're here, something that I didn't sort of present at the beginning was this home. So if you're looking at this photo, just up from it is the house that's beside theirs.
Right.
So it goes 109, and then it goes the bungalow that's kind of getting lopped off. And then
It's
it's
the
this
smaller one, yeah.
large addition.
that's out of the district.
This is out of the historic district.
Two doors down.
But
Yeah.
within, on that like front-facing street character, what they've done is their roof line is sitting there and they've got everything like very tall and into the distance behind that you can see from the
You
street.
can see it's stacked up tall.
So when we were considering how to make ours a secondary structure, we are using this as a precedent for like, we're not doing this. We're very much trying to not be the guy that makes a large addition to the rear of their home that you can see from the street. And so all of this is, in context for what's happened around them. Even though it's not in the historic district, it is on that street and we're aware of that. And it's frustrating that our brother got to do the thing, it's sort of thing. But
Yeah.
we get that that's not quite your consideration, but it is happening.
Okay.
But you know what? If you'd have done what your brother did, it would not go with the house.
Totally.
I
And that's,
mean,
Yeah, would, yeah,
Exactly.
exactly.
Good for you to respect that and just keep it the one level. That's the charm of this.
Yeah, that's all.
And the
Yeah.
roof pitches are the charm of it. They're not,
And this is a beautiful project that you've presented here. It's
Yeah,
very
thank you.
nice.
Any other feedback on the garage?
No, it looks
All right,
good.
let's go to the man shed. The it looks like a workout shed.
Yes,
Okay.
workout area.
So this we're calling it a secondary accessory structure, a minor.
Minor.
Okay, and minor is because it's what, less than 200 square feet or something?
Well, it's supposed to be encompassing square feet, including up underneath roof. And so that was not included, let's see, the footprint, well, it's 200
Yeah, it
square.
says 200.
Yeah.
Accessory
But
shed.
it does utilize a little overhang. So that would need to be equated into the measurements to make sure that it's 200.
Okay.
So if, I just, understanding the characteristics here, or the conformance, if we were to go buy a 200 square foot shed from Home Depot, for example, and it had roof overhangs, would that be the same sort of condition?
Well, yeah, that's what's kind of my question too, is like, we don't calculate roof overhangs for any of the other buildings. It's when you start to exaggerate it, it becomes like a space. That's
Sure.
one thing. And a lot of jurisdictions, like I know Metro has what they call appurtenances, and the limit's 2 feet. So it's like chimneys can set 2 feet into setbacks.
Yeah.
Roof overhangs no more than 2 feet don't really count against you. So I don't even know what our rules are here.
We do have appurtenances, and we can definitely get with y'all to provide that information.
So you might get, if you decide, I like 4 feet, you might get penalized for part of it, and part of it's like, well, everything needs an overhang. So work with staff on that. Any comment on the shape, form, shed roof? It's kind of a simple.
Yeah.
Transoms. I think you
We
got,
need to see more detailing on the windows as a whole before I could nixate the transoms, but they're not unheard of.
They would be.
Little skinny, horizontal windows are part of this mid-century modern aspect, but I would like more information on windows just as a whole, but,
Can I ask for clarification? So the windows on the side are the same kind of Pella traditional, that would be the plan, with the same mullion patterns. Is it the transom windows that you're asking for clarification on? The
I think
window-
that's what staff was asking us
Okay.
to respond to.
Yeah.
How do we feel about the transom windows?
There didn't appear to be any transoms on the principal building, so that is what we were seeking the guidance on.
I'm not sure you'll ever see them from the street.
Well,
where that's
for example, like if you've got a typical size of a horizontal window like that, somewhere else in one of the components of the other windows, you can mimic that proportion. So then
Yeah.
that gives me a
Sure.
comfort level that it blends with the rest of the building. So while, our guidelines they're not conforming all the way around, we kind of have to look a little deeper into it, so.
and you may decide to just, you could always punt and just get taller sliders if you wanted. This is eerily similar to my wood shop. Like, if you saw a picture, you'd be like, oh my gosh. Yeah, I think, Kathy, to your point, you've got these windows on the side that have this horizontal divider. There's a rectangle proportion there. And if that's kind of found over there, it's close. I think that's fine. For this style of house,
Yes.
there are long horizontal windows.
And it's not reading, I don't think it's reading as a transom, it's more the
Clear story.
little sky windows that used, or whatever, up the wall windows that used to happen
What,
in this.
so on this garage, I'm seeing brick. Are you going to replicate some of that brick detailing? Are you just going straight brick and painting it?
I mean, I think we were coming to ask for clarification about what would kind of meet the guidelines here. Our thought was that it would be secondary, so it wouldn't have the same brick detail.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
I think you mentioned before that, like, maybe there's a world where we propose and decide to value engineer just a little out and just do horizontal siding here.
Yeah.
So
I
don't
think siding could be great.
Okay.
Speaking about brick, so the addition to the house, is the brick on the house, the original, like a queen size or elongated?
I
Skinny
think it's a
brick?
typical.
Typical.
Just a modular,
I think.
8 by
Real-
standard
okay.
mod.
It's not
No, I
the
don't
blonde,
think, I don't
Long.
think so.
yeah.
The
King or
only thing
queen.
special is the detailing on the grout joints.
Yeah.
Every 3 courses, and that's what we'll plan to replicate, along with the kind of double row course that extends by like an inch or so at the windowsill.
Bring us some good pictures of that. It'd be
Yeah.
nice to see
Yeah.
it like a,
And then
That'd be
your
great.
grout too, sometimes they rake those, there's different raking details on those.
Yeah.
So we need to look and see if you mimic that on the addition. but maybe the additional buildings are something entirely
Mhm.
different, or how those two play into the whole scheme of things.
If, I think I'm right, this used to be the art house for BGA. And
Cool.
my
Makes sense.
daughter loved being there. It was,
Awesome. All right. I think we've covered all three buildings now. Anything else? Any
is there
questions?
something else we could do?
I need a nap.
Yeah.
All right. Thank y'all very much. Appreciate y'all.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right, staff announcements.
Deadline to submit to the June 8th Historic Zoning Commission is this Friday, May 22nd, by midnight.
Okay, thank you. We don't need a motion to adjourn, so we're adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.